So, hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is part 2 of What If Naruto Was an Uchiha and also inheriting the dark legacy of both Shinto and Greek gods. Here, Naruto is the son of Hades and the grandson of the Greek goddess of love. In this fanfic, we will see powerful and mystical versions of Naruto. But don't forget to check out the description box, please do support the original author. Now, let's start the story where we left off. Suddenly all three symbols above Naruto's head started to combine, and then they formed new symbols. It was the red circular symbol, with 4 concentric circles and 9 commas in them. The symbol was shown only for a few seconds, and then disappeared. No one, but only Chiron saw that symbol. He noticed the same symbol on Naruto's back. Whose symbol is this? He thought. Chapter 10. A Quest. The campers were in shock. They were shocked about Percy being the son of Poseidon, but that was trampled on by the shock of Naruto's lineage. He was the son of Hades, lord of underworld, and he related to the Amaterasu Shinto goddess. It means he had both Shinto and Greek gods' blood. Then there was Chaos, the primal deity in Greek, and Naruto related to him. It was the most shocking thing to them. "You are full of surprises, ninja boy," Mr. D said with a smirk. "Yes, Hades is your father," Chiron said uncomfortably. "Do you have any clue how you are related to the other two?" "Well, Amaterasu, she must be my grandmother, and Chaos." Naruto noticed Mr. D and Chiron's nervous faces. "He is my great-grandfather." "How are you so sure?" Chiron asked. "He is the one who brought me to this world. He had left me his letter and this," Naruto said, and he pointed to the bracelet on his left bicep. Both Mr. D and Chiron took a closer look at the bracelet and read a Greek phrase on it. Balance, they thought at the same time. "What can it do?" Annabeth asked who saw Naruto's bracelet. Naruto said calmly, "No clue." Others were sweat dropped. "Well, we need to assign you 2 new cabins," Chiron said. "Percy, you will be in your father's cabin, so go get your stuff." Percy just nodded while he and Luke quickly got his stuff. "Now Naruto, I am not so sure where to put you." "What do you mean?" Naruto said. "We never had any kids from Hades or from him. This is a camp for Greek gods' children, and your grandmother is Shinto goddess, so obviously we don't have her cabin." "We circa." Suddenly, all the campers heard a rumbling sound. It was coming from the empty space between Poseidon and Zeus's cabins. The ground began to shake, a fissure opened up and a building as black as night raised from the ground with the screams of the dead. The cabin was totally black and its walls were made of solid obsidian. There was a skull hung over the door. There were torches in front of the door, which was burning with green fire. It was the 13th cabin, Hades' cabin. "Well, now we have Hades' cabin," Mr. D said. Then he turned his head toward the campers. "Now the show is over, so back to your respective cabin." All campers went to their respective cabin. Mr. D also went with them. Only Naruto and Chiron were standing alone there. "Anything you want, Chiron?" Naruto asked. Chiron said, "Yes." He pointed toward the red symbol on his back. "Whose symbol is this?" "Jubi's eye symbol." "This is my symbol," Naruto said and turned around and he started walking toward his cabin. Suddenly he stopped and glanced up at the pine tree. "It is interesting, isn't it? Now camp has all 3 children of Big 3, he said to Chiron. Chiron said, "What?" "I am talking about me, Percy and Theia." "How do you know about her? Did Grover tell you about this?" "Yes and no, I did know about it from the first day of camp." "So, who told you this?" "Theia herself tells me this." "How this possible?" "Chiron, I am the son of Hades. It was easy for me to see her spirit from inside the tree." Chiron said, then why he saw Naruto wasn't even there. "I'll ask him about it tomorrow," he thought. "Wow." Theia said that was so cool. "No, that was hot," Naruto corrected her. "I particularly burned that hound." Yes, it was hot," Theia said with a smile. "Anything else?" "Yes, now, we know who are our parents." "So, are you going to tell me?" "Yes, Percy is the Poseidon," Naruto said, making Thalia's eyes widen. "And me, I am the son of Hades and—" "What?" Theia shouted. "Why, you are the son of Hades. I know our father doesn't like each other and my father is responsible for your condition. But that's not what you're probably thinking, Naruto," Theia said. "I was just surprised because you are not acting like Hades' kids." She hugged him. "I don't care, you are Hades' kid. You are perfect, which is pretty good to me," she said, with tiny pink on her cheek. Naruto surprised but hugged her back. "Thanks," he said. Theia put away the hug. "You wanted to say something before," she said. "Yes," Naruto said. "I am the son of Hades, but I am also related to the Amaterasu Shinto goddess in Chaos. You have both Shinto and Greek gods' blood and Chaos, who is primal deity." Naruto nodded. "How so?" Naruto said, "Amaterasu is my grandmother and Chaos is my great-grandfather." He told his remaining story to her. "Could you show me your Sharingan?" Theia asked. Naruto said, sure. Theia saw Naruto's eyes turned red with 3 commas like mark on them. This is Sharingan, he said. Then his eyes changed again. Now, they had 8-pointed star with a strange design in the middle. And this is Eternal Magicum Sharingan. It is an advanced form of the Sharingan. His eyes turned back in his normal dark blue color. They are cool, but I always like your dark blue eyes. They are beautiful. Naruto smiled and said, and you're the prettiest girl I've ever met. Theia smiled back and blushed slightly. I promise you, soon I'll find a way to get you out from here. Really? Theia asked hopefully. Yes, after that would you like to go out with me? Naruto asked. Why you mean a date? Naruto nodded. I would like to go out with you, Theia said, with a new blush on her face. Thanks. Anyway, I should get going, Naruto said. Oh, one more thing, I told Chiron that I can talk to you. So how did he take it? I didn't stop there too long, but he was shocked, Naruto said. Well, anyway I will know his reaction tomorrow. Theia nodded. Okay, goodbye, she said, giving him another hug. She saw he disappeared. Naruto found himself in a dark void. Okay, I am supposed to in the camp, not here. He looked around and noticed there was nothing but darkness. Where am I? He shouted. You are in the void, unknown voice said from behind him. Turning back, he saw it was humanoid figure. He was totally black and had white pupil-less eyes. Who are you? Naruto said and activated his Sharingan. This is a way to talk to your great-grandfather. Why you are you? Chaos. Yes, I am Chaos, your great-grandfather, Chaos said, and his form shifted. Naruto saw his great-grandfather, who had now midnight black hair, pale skin and same pupil-less eyes. He looked like his grandfather, Madara. Or my grandfather looked like him, Naruto thought. Now I am not being rude, but why are you here? Naruto asked. Chaos smiled. Naruto, I came here to see you, he said. Okay, I want to ask you a question. Why? Why was I chosen to destroy the Juubi? It is simple, Naruto. The Juubi was the progenitor of the ninja world. It would have brought great destruction if Tobi would have succeeded to revive it. It was necessary to destroy it. Then why me? Because Juubi was the harbinger of death and chaos, and you have death and chaos blood in you. Also you have the blood of both Shinto and Greek's god, Chaos said. And we believed in you for Juubi power. Thanks for believing in me, but not means I like it, Naruto said. I know about your early life's pain and suffering, Chaos said. But it's your chance for a fresh start and I know you are doing it well. You have already got a girlfriend. Theia is not my girlfriend. Naruto shouted, with blush on his face. I didn't say the Theia's name, Chaos said with a smirk. Smart ass, Naruto muttered. Chaos puts a hand on his head and he glowed for a moment. What was that? He asked. I strengthened your god's blood, Chaos said. So, anything you want to ask? Yes, Naruto said. He pointed toward bracelet on his left shoulder. What it does? You will find about it later, Chaos said. And one more thing you have to know. On your journey you will meet another family member. Naruto nodded goodbye, great-grandson. Goodbye, Naruto said. He found himself beside Theia tree. The next morning, Percy had a great day. He had his own cabin, which he didn't have to share with anybody. He had plenty of room for all his stuff. The Minotaur's horn, one set of spare clothes, and a toiletry bag, and he got to sit at his own dinner table, pick all his own activities, call lights out whenever he felt like it, and not listen to anybody else. And he was absolutely miserable. Just when Percy had started to feel accepted, to feel he had a home in cabin 11, and he might be a normal kid or as normal as you can be when you're a half-blood, he had been separated out as if he had some rare disease. Nobody mentioned the Hellhound, but he got the feeling they were all talking about it behind his back. The attack had scared everybody. It sent 3 messages. 1, that he was the son of the sea god. 2nd, Naruto was the son of Hades, the god of the underworld, and related Shinto sun goddess Amaterasu and primal deity Chaos. And 3, monsters would stop at nothing to kill them. They could even invade a camp that had always been considered safe. The other campers steered clear of them as much as possible. Percy also noticed, some campers were looking toward Naruto with fear and some with great admiration, and some girls were looking toward him with a blush. Cabin 11 was too nervous to have sword class with Percy after what he had done for the Ares folks in the woods, so his lessons with Luke became one-on-one. He pushed him harder than ever and wasn't afraid to bruise him up in the process. You're going to need all the training you can get, Luke promised, as they were working with swords and flaming torches. Now let's try that Viper beheading strike again. 50 more repetitions. Annabeth still taught Percy Greek in the mornings, but she seemed distracted. Every time he said something, she scowled at him, as if he had just poked her between the eyes. After lessons, she would walk away muttering to herself. Quest Poseidon. Dirty rotten, got to make a plan. Even Clarice kept her distance, though her venomous looks made it clear she wanted to kill Percy for breaking her magic spear. One night Percy came into his cabin and found a mortal newspaper dropped inside the doorway, a copy of the New York Daily News, open to the Metro page. The article took him almost an hour to read, because the angrier he got, the more the words floated around on the page. Boy and mother still missing after freak car accident. By Eileen Smythe. Sally Jackson and son Percy are still missing 1 week after their mysterious disappearance. The family's badly burned '78 Camaro was discovered last Saturday on a North Long Island road, with a roof ripped off and the front axle broken. The car had flipped and skidded for several hundred feet before exploding. Mother and son had gone for a weekend vacation to Montauk, but left hastily, under mysterious circumstances. Small traces of blood were found in the car and near the scene of the wreck, but there were no other signs of the missing Jacksons. Residents in the rural area reported seeing nothing unusual around the time of the accident. Liz Jackson's husband, Gabe Ugliano, claims that his stepson, Percy Jackson, is a troubled child who has been kicked out of numerous boarding schools and has expressed violent tendencies in the past. Police would not say whether son Percy is a suspect in his mother's disappearance, but they have not ruled out foul play. Below are recent pictures of Sally Jackson and Percy. Police urge anyone with information to call the following toll-free Crime Stoppers hotline. The phone number circled in black marker. Percy wadded up the paper and threw it away, then flopped down on his bunk bed in the middle of his empty cabin. "Lights out, Percy," Naruto voice said, from behind him. "What the hell, Naruto, don't do that," Percy said. Naruto just smirked. "And where have you been all these days?" "Busy with training and some problem," Naruto said. "I was busy to give whole explanation about Theia to Chiron, Mr. Chiron, Annabeth, Grover and Luke," Naruto said. "Well, Mr. D didn't care anything about that. Chiron was happy about it. Grover was bouncing off the trees, much to my annoyance, and Annabeth was very happy and Luke, he is." Naruto, Percy shouted. What is it with you? Why are you so spaced out?" "Nothing," Naruto said. "See you soon." He disappeared with a flock of crows. "Weird," Percy said to himself. Later that night, both Naruto and Percy had the same dream. The dream where Poseidon and Zeus were fighting in Greek armor and Hades was cheering them from the sidelines with his ghost cheerleaders. Then suddenly, a voice, which seemed to be from the underground, woke them up. "Come down, little heroes," the voice crooned. "Come down." The sand split beneath both of them, opening up a crevice straight down to the center of the earth. Percy's feet slipped, and darkness swallowed him. He disappeared. So Percy woke up, Naruto thought, as he was standing midair. He looked at the darkness under his feet and saw that two evil eyes were looking at him. "Who are you?" Naruto asked with a cold tone. "What is this, no fear?" Naruto said, "I have no fear from a coward like you." He felt killing intent coming from it. "An insolent child, I will have to teach you some manners." "No thanks," Naruto said. He activated his Sharingan and sent his own killing intent. "This is my mind and you are not welcome here." With that image of Black Dragon materialized behind him, who roared loudly and sent shockwave everywhere. Dream world disappeared and Naruto woke up. Naruto heard a Grover voice from his cabin. "Naruto. Open the door, I got Percy, we have to get to the big house." He opened the door and saw Grover was scared to his cabin. "Why?" Naruto asked. "Just hurry." "Okay, give me 2 minutes." Naruto walked back in and a few minutes later, he was in his usual attire. "Let's go." He put a hand on Grover's shoulder and both disappeared. They appeared beside Percy. "I felt dizzy," Grover said. Naruto ignored him and looked toward Percy, who was in deep thought. "A penny for your thoughts," he said. "Huh, Naruto?" Percy said. He saw Naruto clam face. "I don't understand how you can be so calm. I mean, we are a couple of kids that should not exist. Simple, I don't care." "I should have known," Percy thought. They saw over Long Island Sound, a hazy curtain of rain was coming in their direction. Percy asked, "We need an umbrella." "No," Grover said. "It never rains here unless we want it to." Naruto doesn't say anything. At the volleyball pit, they saw the kids from Apollo's cabin were playing a morning game against the Satyrs. Dionysus's twins were walking around in the strawberry fields, making the plants grow. Everybody was going about their normal business, but they looked tense. They kept their eyes on the storm. Percy, Grover and Naruto walked up to the front porch of the big house. Dionysus sat at the pinnacle table in his tiger-striped Hawaiian shirt with his Diet Coke, and Chiron sat across the table in his fake wheelchair. They were playing against invisible opponents, 2 sets of cards hovering in the air. Well, Mr. T said without looking up. "Our little celebrities." "Thanks for welcome," Naruto said. "Come closer," Mr. T said. "And don't expect me to kowtow to you, mortal, just because old Barnacle Beard is your father." Then he looked toward Naruto. "Same to you." A net of lightning flashed across the clouds. Thunder shook the windows of the house. "Blah, blah, blah," Dionysus said. Chiron feigned interest in his pinochle cards. Grover cowered by the railing, his hooves clopping back and forth. "If I had my way," Dionysa said, "I would cause your molecules to erupt in flames. We'd sweep up the ashes and be done with a lot of trouble. But Chiron seems to feel this would be against my mission of this cursed camp. To keep your little brat safe from harm." "Well, I don't need protection," Naruto said, "you know what I want. I want to get out of here and want to battle with monsters. It's so boring here." Mr. D smirked at his answer. "Spontaneous combustion is a form of harm, Mr. D," Chiron said. "Nonsense," Dionysa said. He looked toward Percy. "Boy wouldn't feel a thing. Nevertheless, I've agreed to restrain myself. I'm thinking of turning you into a dolphin instead, sending you back to your father." Mr. D. Chiron warned. "Oh, all right," Dionysus relented. "There's one more option. But it's deadly foolishness." Dionysus rose, and the invisible player's cards dropped to the table. "I'm off to Olympus for the emergency meeting. If the boy Percy is still here when I get back, I'll turn him into an Atlantic botanist. Do you understand? And Perseus Jackson, if you're at all smart, you'll see that's a much more sensible choice than what Chiron feels you must do." Dionysus picked up a playing card, twisted it, and it became a plastic rectangle. A security pass. He snapped his fingers. The air seemed to fold and bend around him. He became a hologram, then a wind, and then he was gone, leaving only the smell of fresh pressed grapes lingering behind. "That was good, but mine is better," Naruto thought. Chiron smiled at both of them, but he looked tired and strained. "Sit, Percy and Naruto, please. And Grover." They did. Chiron laid his cards on the table. "Tell me, boys," he said. "What did you make of the hellhound?" "It scared me," Percy said. "Only thanks to Naruto I am not dead yet." Naruto said, "It was weak, just like that bull." Others' sweat dropped. "Okay, you'll face strong opponent, Naruto," Chiron said. "And you Percy, you'll meet worse. Far worse, before you're done." "Done with what?" Percy asked. Chiron said, "Your quest, of course. Will you accept it?" Naruto nodded and Percy glanced at Grover, who was crossing his fingers. Sir," Percy said, "you haven't told me what it is yet." Chiron grimaced. "Well, that's the hard part, the details." Thunder rumbled across the valley. The storm clouds had now reached the edge of the beach. As far as they could see, the sky and the sea were boiling together. "Hades, Poseidon and Zeus," Percy said. "They're fighting over something valuable, something that was stolen, aren't they?" Chiron and Grover exchanged looks. Chiron sat forward in his wheelchair. "How did you know that?" Percy looked embarrassed at that for some reason. "The weather since Christmas has been weird, like the sea and the sky are fighting. Then I talked to Annabeth and she'd overheard something about a theft. And I've also been having these dreams." "I knew it," Grover said. "Hush, Satyr," Chiron ordered. "But it is his quest." Grover's eyes were bright with excitement. "It must be. Only the Oracle can determine." Chiron stroked his bristly beard. "Nevertheless, Percy, you are correct. Your father and Zeus are having their worst quarrel in centuries. They are fighting over something valuable that was stolen. To be precise. A lightning bolt. Of course Hades is merely egging them on for his own amusement." Percy laughed nervously. "A what?" "Do not take this lightly," Chiron warned. "I'm not talking about some tinfoil-covered zigzag you'd see in a second-grade play. I'm talking about a 2-foot-long cylinder of high-grade celestial bronze, capped on both ends with the god-level explosives." "Oh. Zeus's master bolt," Chiron said, getting worked up now. "The symbol of his power, from which all other lightning bolts are patterned. The first weapon made by the Cyclops for the war against the Titans, the bolt that sheared the top of Mount Etna and hurled Kronos from his throne, the master bolt, which packs enough power to make mortal hydrogen bombs look like firecrackers. And it's missing." "Stolen," Chiron said. "By who?" "By whom?" Chiron corrected. "Once a teacher, always a teacher. By you too." Percy's mouth fell open, while Naruto raised his earbow. At least Chiron held up a hand. "That's what Zeus thinks." During the winter solstice, at the last council of the gods, Zeus and Poseidon had an argument. The usual nonsense. "Mother Ray always liked you best. Air disasters are more spectacular than sea disasters, etc." Afterward, Zeus realized his master bolt was missing, taken from the throne room under his very nose. He immediately blamed Poseidon. Now, a god cannot usurp another god's symbol of power directly. That is forbidden by the most ancient of divine laws. But Zeus believes your father convinced a human hero to take it. But we didn't. "Patience and listen, child," Chiron said. "Zeus has good reason to be suspicious. The forges of the Cyclops are under the ocean, which gives Poseidon some influence over the makers of his brother's lightning. Zeus believes Poseidon has taken the master bolt and is now secretly having the Cyclops build an arsenal of illegal copies, which might be used to topple Zeus from his throne. The only thing Zeus wasn't sure about was which hero Poseidon used to steal the bolt. Now Poseidon has openly claimed you as his son. You were in New York over the winter holidays. You could easily have snuck into Olympus. Zeus believes he has found his thief. Then why me? Naruto asked. You're the son of Hades. He and Zeus don't like to each other. Zeus thinks that Hades is conspiring with Poseidon to get a copy of the real thing, as he wants to take Zeus's rule away, Chiron said. Whatever, I don't care, Naruto said calmly. Percy said, but I've never even been to Olympus. Zeus is crazy. Chiron and Grover glanced nervously at the sky. The clouds didn't seem to be parting around them, as Grover had promised. They were rolling straight over our valley, sealing them in like a coffin lid. Air, Percy. Grover said. We don't use the C word to describe the Lord of the Sky. Perhaps paranoid, Chiron suggested. Then again, Poseidon has tried to unseat Zeus before, same with Hades. I believe that was question 38 on your final exam. He looked at Percy as if he actually expected him to remember question 38. How could anyone accuse me of stealing a god's weapon? I couldn't even steal a slice of pizza from Gabe's poker party without getting busted, Percy thought. He saw Chiron was waiting for an answer. Something about a golden net. He guessed. Poseidon and Hera and a few other gods trapped Zeus and wouldn't let him out until he promised to be a better ruler, right? Correct, Chiron said. And Zeus has never trusted Poseidon and Hades. Poseidon denies stealing the Master Bolt. He took great offense at the accusation. The two have been arguing back and forth for months, threatening war. Hades just said he didn't, not feeling like starting a war, for he already has too much work. And now, you two have come along the proverbial last straw. Percy, Grover cut in, if you were Zeus, and you already thought your brothers was plotting to overthrow you, then your brothers suddenly admitted that they had broken the sacred oath he took after World War II, that they have fathered a couple of new mortal heroes who might be used as a weapon against you, wouldn't that put a twist in your toga? But I didn't do anything. Poseidon, my dad, he didn't really have this Master Bolt stolen, did he? Chiron sighed. Most thinking observers would agree that thievery is not Poseidon's or Hades' style. But the sea god is too proud to try convincing Zeus of that, and Hades has just become too lazy. Zeus has demanded that they return the bolt by the summer solstice. That's June 21st, 10 days from now. Poseidon wants an apology for being called a thief by the same date, and Hades doesn't care either way, just that this matter be solved before he is overloaded. I hope that diplomacy might prevail, that Hera or Demeter or Hestia would make the three brothers see sense. But your arrival has inflamed Zeus's temper. Now neither god will back down. Unless someone intervenes, unless the Master Bolt is found and returned to Zeus before the solstice, there will be war. And do you know what a full-fledged war would look like, Percy? Bad? Percy guessed. Imagine the world in chaos. Nature at war with itself. Olympians forced to choose sides between Zeus, Poseidon and Hades. Destruction. Carnage. Millions dead. Western civilization turned into a battleground so big it will make the Trojan War look like a water balloon fight. Bad, Percy repeated. And you two, Percy Jackson and Naruto Uchiha, would be the first two to feel the Zeus's wrath. It started to rain. Volleyball players stopped their game and stared in stunned silence at the sky. Percy had a dumbstruck look on his face, and Naruto showed no emotion. I am waiting for it, Naruto thought. So I have to find the stupid bolt, Percy said. And return it to Zeus. What better peace offering, Chiron said, than to have the son of Poseidon and the son of Hades return Zeus's property. If Poseidon doesn't have it, where is the thing? Percy asked. I believe I know. Chiron's expression was grim. Part of a prophecy I had years ago. Well, some of the lines make sense to me now. But before I can say more, you must officially take up the quest. You must seek the counsel of the oracle. Why can't you tell me where the bolt is beforehand? Because if I did, then you would be too afraid to accept the challenge. Percy swallowed. Good reason. You two agree then? Chiron said. Percy looked at Grover, who nodded encouragingly. Easy for him. Zeus doesn't want to kill, Percy thought. All right, he said. It's better than being turned into a dolphin. All of them looked toward Naruto. I had already said yes, Naruto said. Then it's time you two consulted the oracle, Chiron said. Go upstairs to the attic. When you come back down, assuming you two is still sane, we will talk more. Naruto and Percy went up 4 floors that ended under a green trapdoor. Percy pulled the cord. The door swung down, and a wooden ladder clattered into place. The warm air from above smelled like mildew and rotten wood and something else, a smell they remembered from biology class. Reptiles, the smell of snakes. Both of them held their breath and climbed. The attic was filled with Greek hero junk. Armor stands covered in cobwebs, once bright shields pitted with rust, old leather steamer trunks plastered with stickers saying Ithaca, Circe's Isle, and Land of the Amazons. One long table was stacked with glass jars filled with pickled things, severed hairy claws, huge yellow eyes, and various other parts of monsters. The dusty mounted trophy on the wall looked like a giant snake's head, but with horns and a full set of shark's teeth. The plaque reads, Hydra Head No. 1, Woodstock, New York, 1969. By the window, sitting on a wooden tripod stool, was the most gruesome memento of all. A mummy. Not the wrapped in cloth kind, but a human female body shriveled to a husk. She wore a tie-dyed sundress, lots of beaded necklaces, and a headband over long black hair. The skin of her face was thin and leathery over her skull, and her eyes were glassy white slits, as if the real eyes had been replaced by marbles. She'd been dead a long time. She sat up on her stool and opened her mouth. A green mist poured from the mummy's mouth, coiling over the floor in thick tendrils, hissing like 20,000 snakes. Percy stumbled over himself trying to get to the trapdoor, but it slammed shut. Then they heard a voice in their heads. I am the spirit of Delphi, speaker of the prophecies of Phobos Apollo, slayer of the mighty Python. Approach, seeker, and ask. I wanted to say, no thanks, wrong door, just looking for the bathroom. Naruto saw this was freaking out Percy. Calm down, Percy. Take a breath. We will say same time, he said. Percy nodded. What is my destiny? They asked at the same time. The mist swirled more thickly, collecting right in front of me and around the table with the pickled monster part jars. Suddenly there were 4 men sitting around the table, playing cards. Their faces became clear. It was Smelly Gabe and his buddies, along with Kakashi. This is just an illusion, Naruto thought. Abe turned to Percy and spoke in the rasping voice of the oracle. You shall go west and face the god who has turned. Kakashi said in the same voice. Great-grandson of chaos will show his true face. Abe's buddy on the right looked up and said in the same voice. You shall find what was stolen and see it safely returned. The guy on the left threw in 2 poker chips, then said. You shall be betrayed by one who calls you a friend. Finally, Eddie delivered the worst line of all. And you shall fail to save what matters most, in the end. Percy was too stunned to say anything, but as the mist retreated, coiling into a huge green serpent and slithering back into the mouth of the mummy, he cried, wait. What do you mean? What friend? What will I fail to save? The tail of the mist snake disappeared into the mummy's mouth. She reclined back against the wall. Her mouth closed tight, as if it hadn't been open in 100 years. The attic was silent again, abandoned, nothing but a room full of mementos. Let's get out of here, Naruto said. Well? Chiron asked. They slumped into a chair at the pinnacle table. She said I would retrieve what was stolen, Percy said. Grover sat forward, chewing excitedly on the remains of a Diet Coke can. That's great. What did the oracle say exactly? Chiron pressed. This is important. Percy said, she said I would go west and face a god who had turned. I would retrieve what was stolen and see it safely returned. I knew it, Grover said. Chiron didn't look satisfied. Anything else? Percy didn't want to tell him. No, he said. That's about it. Chiron turned toward Naruto and asked, and you Naruto? Great-grandson of the chaos will show his true face, Naruto said. Chiron said, very well, Percy and Naruto. But know this. The oracle's words often have double meanings. Don't dwell on them too much. The truth is not always clear until events come to pass. Percy got the feeling Chiron knew he was holding back something bad and he was trying to make him feel better. Okay, he said, anxious to change topics. So where do I go? Who's this god in the west? Think Percy, Chiron said. If Zeus and Poseidon weaken each other in a war, who stands to gain? Somebody else who wants to take over? Percy guessed. Yes, quite. Someone who has been unhappy with his lot since the world was divided eons ago, whose kingdom would grow powerful with the deaths of millions, someone who hates his brothers for forcing him into an oath to have no more children, an oath that both of them have now broken. My father, Hades, Naruto answered his question. Chiron nodded. The Lord of the Dead is the only possibility. A scrap of aluminum dribbled out of Grover's mouth. Whoa, wait. What? Percy also surprised. Why you don't want to defend your father? He asked Naruto. Percy, a few days ago, I don't even know his name. So why should I defend him, who was unknown to me, in my whole life, Naruto said. Other surprised at his answer. Do you hate your father, Naruto? Chiron asked. No, Naruto said. Just I want to know about him more. Chiron nodded. A fury came after Percy, Chiron said. She watched a young man until she was sure of his identity, then tried to kill him. Furies obey only one lord. Hades. Yes, but Hades hates all heroes, Grover protested. Especially if he has found out Percy is a son of Poseidon, he doesn't have a problem with Naruto, because he is his son. The hellhound got into the forest, Chiron continued. Those can only be summoned from the fields of punishment and it had to be summoned by someone within the camp. Hades must have a SP. Chiron, Naruto said. You have forgotten one major point. What do you mean? Naruto said, Zeus also blames Hades for stealing his bolt. So, if war happens, it is also possible that Hades will join in Zeus and Poseidon fight. Tyron nodded and asked, if it's not Hades, then who he is? You already know my answer. The person who is more evil and darker than my father. Tyron shocked. Why you mean him, he asked. Yes. What you're talking about? Percy asked. It's better for you don't know anything about this, Chiron said. For now, you and Naruto must go to the underworld, find the Master Bolt, and reveal the truth. This was suicide, Percy thought. Look, if we know it's Hades, he told Chiron, why can't we just tell the other gods? Zeus or Poseidon could go down to the underworld and bust some heads. Suspecting and knowing are not the same, Chiron said. Besides, even if the other gods suspect Hades and I imagine Poseidon does, they couldn't retrieve the bolt themselves. Gods cannot cross each other's territory except by invitation. That is another ancient rule. Heroes, on the other hand, have certain privileges. They can go anywhere, challenge anyone, as long as they're bold enough and strong enough to do it. No god can be held responsible for a hero's actions. Why do you think the gods always operate through humans? You're saying I'm being used. I'm saying it's no accident Poseidon has claimed you now. It's a very risky gamble, but he's in a desperate situation. He needs you. My dad needs me, Percy thought. He didn't know whether to feel resentful or grateful or happy or angry. Poseidon had ignored him for 12 years. Now suddenly he needed him. You've known I was Poseidon's son all along, haven't you? Percy asked. And for Naruto as well, being the son of Hades and all. I had my suspicions. As I said, I've spoken to the Oracle, too. So let me get this straight, Percy said. I'm supposed go to the underworld and confront the Lord of the Dead. Check, Chiron said. Find the most powerful weapon in the universe. Check. And get it back to Olympus before the summer solstice, in 10 days. That's about right. Percy looked at Grover, who gulped down the ace of hearts. Did I mention that Maine is very nice this time of year? Grover asked weakly. You don't have to go, Percy told him. I can't ask that of you. Oh, Grover shifted his hooves. No, it's just that Satyr's an underground place as well. He took a deep breath and then stood, brushing the shredded cards and aluminum bits off his t-shirt. You and Naruto saved my life. If you two are serious about wanting me along, I won't let you two down. Percy felt so relieved he wanted to cry, though, that is very heroic. All the way, G-man. Percy turned to Chiron. So where do we go? The Oracle just said to go west. The entrance to the underworld is always in the west. It moves from age to age, just like Olympus. Right now, of course, it's in America. Where? Chiron looked surprised. I thought that would be obvious enough. The entrance to the underworld is in Los Angeles. Oh, Percy said. Naturally, so we just get on a plane. No. Grover shrieked. Percy, what are you thinking? Have you ever been on a plane in your life? Percy shook his head in the negative. Percy, think, Chiron said. You are the son of the sea god. Your father's bitterest rival is Zeus, lord of the sky. Your mother knew better than to trust you on an airplane. You would be in Zeus's domain. You would never come down again alive. Then what about me? Naruto asked. To be honest, I am not sure, Chiron said thoughtfully. Overhead, lightning crackled. Thunder boomed. Okay, Percy said, determined not to look at the storm. So, I'll travel overland. That's right, Chiron said. 2 companions may accompany you too. Grover is one. The other has already volunteered, if you will accept her help. Percy said, feigning surprise. Who else would be stupid enough to volunteer for a quest like this? Last champion is Annabeth, Naruto said. Am I right, Chiron? He looked behind Chiron. The air shimmered behind Chiron. Annabeth became visible, stuffing her Yankees cap into her back pocket. I've waited a long time for a quest, seaweed brain, she said. Athena is no fan of Poseidon, but if you're going to save the world, I'm the best person to keep you from messing up. Besides, we have Naruto here to protect us. She then turned to Naruto and said, can you see me even if I am invisible? Yes, Naruto said. There is nothing you can hide from my eyes. I can see you clearly. If you do say so yourself, Percy said to Annabeth. I suppose you have a plan, wise girl. Annabeth's cheeks colored. Do you want my help or not? The truth was I did. I needed all the help I could get, Percy thought. That'll work, he said. Excellent, Chiron said. This afternoon, we can take you as far as the bus terminal in Manhattan. After that, you are on your own. Lightning flashed. Rain poured down on the meadows that were never supposed to have violent weather. No time to waste, Chiron said. I think you should all get packing. See you soon there, Naruto said. His eyes turned red and he slowly sank into the ground. All other looked at the place where Naruto had disappeared. They all were still in shock. What was that? Annabeth asked. I don't know, Percy answered her. Chapter 11, Highway to Hell. So, let me get it straight. Theia said. You, Annabeth, Gover and Poseidon's son Percy are going on a quest to my father's lightning bolt. Naruto nodded. Where? She asked. To the underworld, Naruto said. He saw her sad face. But don't worry, you can talk to me anytime with your necklace. This quest is looking dangerous, so take care of yourself, Naruto, Theia said. Also, take care of Annabeth and Gover. Naruto nodded and said, I promise you. He gave her a hug. Well, I better get going, I will see you later, Theia. Naruto, Theia said to him as he looked up in time to see Theia connect her lips to his as she kissed him. Naruto was surprised by her action, but he decided to return the kiss. Theia wrapped her arms around Naruto's neck. Naruto wrapped his arms around Thalia's waist and brought their bodies together. Theia was in bliss as she continued kissing Naruto and enjoyed the taste of his lips. Naruto was also enjoying this. Eventually they both separated as they came up for air, and when they did they both had their faces flushed red. Naruto was the first to speak. Wow. Thalia's face was red. Good luck, Naruto, she said. Don't forget our date and come back alive. Naruto nodded and disappeared from limbo. Naruto appeared outside the tree. Well, that was new, he said as small blush was visible on his face. He disappeared again. Percy decided to leave the Minotaur horn in his cabin, which left him only an extra change of clothes and a toothbrush to stuff in a backpack Grover had found for him. The camp store loaned him $100 in mortal money and 20 golden drachmas. These coins were as big as Girl Scout cookies and had images of various Greek gods stamped on one side and the Empire State Building on the other. Chiron said the coins might come in handy for non-mortal transaction. He gave both Annabeth and Percy each a canteen of nectar and a Ziploc bag full of ambrosia squares to be used only in emergencies if they were seriously hurt. It was a god food, Percy, Chiron said. It would cure you of almost any injury, but it was lethal to mortals. Too much of it would make a half-blood very, very feverish. An overdose would burn you up, literally. Well, Naruto is also there to help you. Annabeth was bringing her magic Yankees cap, which she told Percy had been a 12th birthday present from her mom. She carried a book on famous classical architecture, written in ancient Greek, to read when she got bored, and a long bronze knife, hidden in her shirt sleeve. Grover wore his fake feet and his pants to pass as human. He wore a green Rasta-style cap because when it rained his curly hair flattened and you could just see the tips of his horns. His bright orange backpack was full of scrap metal and apples to snack on. In his pocket was a set of reed pipes his daddy Goat had carved for him, even though he only knew 2 songs. Mozart's Piano Concerto No. 12 and Hilary Duff's So Yesterday, both of which sounded pretty bad on reed pipes. They waved goodbye to the other campers, took one last look at the strawberry fields, the ocean, and the big house, then hiked up Half-Blood Hill to the tall pine tree. Tyron was waiting for them in his wheelchair. Next to him stood a guy Percy had seen when he was recovering in the sick room. He was wearing a chauffeur's uniform, so Percy could only see extra peepers on his hands, face and neck. Where is Naruto? Chiron asked. We thought he was here with you, Percy said. I am here, Naruto said as he rose from the ground. He was wearing a gray shirt, black pants, black shoes, and a black jacket with hood. They saw a black raven was standing on his left shoulder. How you do that? Annabeth asked. That's my secret, Naruto said. Naruto, there is a raven on your left shoulder, Percy said. I know Percy, Naruto said. He turned to everyone. Guys, meet Karasu-chan, my partner and she are our 5th member. Hello, Karasu said in famine voice. Did that bird just talk in my head? Grover said. Yes, I can talk. Where did you get her, Naruto? Percy asked. She is the last thing my mother left to me. Karasu-chan is part of her own soul, Naruto said sadly. Hello Karasu, welcome to team, Annabeth said. Thanks Karasu said. Chiron, Naruto said. He gave Chiron a black feather. If you want to contact us, use this. This is Karasu-chan feather. Throw it and she will be there. Thanks, Naruto, Chiron said. This is Argus. He will drive you into the city and, well, keep an eye on things. They heard footsteps behind them. They saw Luke came running up the hill, carrying basketball shoes. Hey. Luke said. Glad I caught you. Annabeth blushed, the way she always did when Luke was around. Just wanted to say good luck, he said to Percy. And I thought maybe you could use these. He handed Percy the sneakers, which looked pretty normal. Luke said, Maya. White bird's wings sprouted out of the heels, startling Percy so much, he dropped them. The shoes flapped around on the ground until the wings folded up and disappeared. Awesome. Grover said. Luke smiled. Those served me well when I was on my quest. Gift from Dad. Of course, I don't use them much these days, he said with a sad expression. Percy didn't know what to say. Hey, man, he said. Thanks. Listen, Percy and Naruto. Luke looked uncomfortable. A lot of hopes are riding on both of you, so just kill some monsters for me, okay? Don't worry, with Percy's luck, we might just run into a few, Naruto said calmly. Hey! Percy shouted. Naruto just ignored him and walked away. Don't waste more time, here, he said and disappeared. Percy and Luke shook hands. Luke patted the Grover's head between his horns and then gave a goodbye hug to Annabeth, who looked like she might pass out. After Luke was gone, Percy said to her, "You're hyperventilating." "I'm not. You let him capture the flag instead of you, didn't you?" "Oh, why do I want to go anywhere with you, Percy?" Annabeth stomped down the other side of the hill, where a white SUV waited on the shoulder of the road. Naruto and Argus were already there. Percy picked up the flying shoes and he had a sudden bad feeling. He looked at Chiron. "I won't be able to use these, will I?" Chiron shook his head. "Luke meant well, Percy. But taking to the air, that would not be wise for you." Percy nodded, disappointed, but then he got an idea. "Hey Grover. You want a magic item?" Grover's eyes lit up. "Me?" Pretty laced the sneakers over his fake feet. "Maya!" he shouted. He got off the ground okay, but then fell over sideways, so his backpack dragged through the grass. The winged shoes kept bucking up and down like tiny broncos. "Practice," Chiron called after him. "You just need practice." "Yeah." Grover went flying sideways down the hill like a possessed lawnmower, heading toward the van. Before Percy could follow, Chiron caught his arm. "I should have trained you better, Percy. I know Naruto doesn't need training, but you," he said. "If only I had more time. Hercules, Jason, they all got more training." "That's okay. I just wish," Percy said, but stopped himself, not wanting to sound selfish and not getting a magical item to help him on his quest. "What am I thinking?" Chiron cried. "I can't let you get away without this." He pulled a pen from his coat pocket and handed it to Percy. It was an ordinary disposable ballpoint, black ink, removable cap. Probably cost 30 cents. "Gee," Percy said. "Thanks." "Percy, that's a gift from your father. I've kept it for years, not knowing you were who I was waiting for. But the prophecy is clear to me now. You're the one." Percy remembered the field trip to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Chiron had thrown him a pen that turned into a sword. He took off the cap and the pen grew longer and heavier in his hand. In half a second, he held a shimmering bronze sword with a double-edged blade, a leather-wrapped grip, and a flat hilt riveted with gold studs. It was the first weapon that actually felt balanced in his hand. "The sword has a long and tragic history that we need not go into," Chiron told me. "Its name is Anaklusmos." Riptide, Percy translated, surprised the ancient Greek came so easily. "Use it only for emergencies," Chiron said, "and only against monsters. No hero should harm mortals unless absolutely necessary, of course, but this sword wouldn't harm them in any case." Percy looked at the wickedly sharp blade. "What do you mean it wouldn't harm mortals? How could it not?" "The sword is celestial bronze. Forged by the Cyclops, tempered in the heart of Mount Etna, cooled in the River Lede. It's deadly to monsters, to any creature from the underworld, provided they don't kill you first. But the blade will pass through mortals like an illusion. They simply are not important enough for the blade to kill. And I should warn you. As a demigod, you can be killed by either celestial or normal weapons. You are twice as vulnerable." "Good to know. Now recap the pen." Percy touched the pen cap to the sword tip and instantly Riptide shrank to a ballpoint pen again. He tucked it in his pocket, a little nervous, because he was famous for losing pens at school. "You can't," Chiron said. "Can't what?" Percy asked. "Lose the pen," Chiron said. "It is enchanted. It will always reappear in your pocket. Try it." Percy was wary, but he threw the pen as far as he could down the hill and watched it disappear in the grass. "It may take a few moments," Chiron said. "Now check your pocket." Percy noticed pen was there. "Okay, that's extremely cool," Percy admitted. "But what if a mortal sees me pulling out a sword?" Chiron smiled. "Mist is a powerful thing, Percy." "Mist?" "Yes. Read the Iliad. It's full of references to the stuff. Whenever divine or monstrous elements mix with the mortal world, they generate mist, which obscures the vision of humans. You will see things just as they are, being a half-blood, but humans will interpret things quite differently. Remarkable, really, the lengths to which humans will go to fit things into their version of reality." Percy placed Riptide back in his pocket. Chiron, Percy said. "When you say the gods are immortal, I mean, there was a time before them, right? 4 ages before them, actually. The time of the Titans was the 4th age, sometimes called the Golden Age, which is definitely a misnomer. This, the time of Western civilization and the rule of Zeus, is the 5th age. So what was it like before the gods?" Chiron pursed his lips. "Even I am not old enough to remember that, child, but I know it was a time of darkness and savagery for mortals. Kronos, the lord of the Titans, called his reign the Golden Age because men lived innocent and free of all knowledge. But that was mere propaganda. The Titan King cared nothing for your kind except as appetizers or a source of cheap entertainment. It was only in the early reign of Lord Zeus, when Prometheus the good Titan brought fire to humanity, that your species began to progress, and even then Prometheus was branded a radical thinker. Zeus punished him severely, as you may recall. Of course, eventually the gods warmed to humans, and Western civilization was born. But the gods can't die now, right? I mean, as long as Western civilization is alive, they're alive. So even if we failed, nothing could happen so bad it would mess up everything, right? Tyrion gave him a melancholy smile. No one knows how long the age of the West will last, Percy. The gods are immortal, yes. But then, so were the Titans. They still exist, locked away in their various prisons, forced to endure endless pain and punishment, reduced in power, but still very much alive. May the fates forbid that the gods should ever suffer such a doom, or that we should ever return to the darkness and chaos of the past. All we can do, child, is follow our destiny. I don't believe in destiny, nor I believe in prophecy, Naruto said. Nothing is set in stone, Chiron. Percy and Chiron surprised at this. Percy, don't waste more time here. Let's go, he said. Percy nodded dumbly. When they joined the others in the car, they saw under the pine tree, Chiron was now standing in full horseman form, holding his bow high in salute. So, you have a new weapon, Naruto said. Yes, it is called Riptide, Percy said. Naruto, you also have weapons. What are their names? Percy asked. Hornet, I called my gauntlet Hornet, Naruto said. With black flash, a black katana appeared in his hand. And this is a Shaiheim Death Princess. Argus drove them out of the countryside and into western Long Island. Percy felt weird to be on a highway again. Annabeth and Grover sitting next to him, and Naruto was sitting on the front seat, as if they were normal carpoolers. After 2 weeks at Half-Blood Hill, the real world seemed like a fantasy. Naruto noticed Percy was staring at every McDonald's, every kid in the back of his parents' car, every billboard and shopping mall. So far so good, Percy said. 10 miles and not a single monster. Annabeth gave him an irritated look. It's bad luck to talk that way, seaweed brain. Remind me again, why do you hate me so much? I don't hate you. Could have fooled me. Annabeth folded her cap of invisibility. Look, we're just not supposed to get along, okay? Our parents are rivals. Why? She sighed. How many reasons do you want? One time my mom caught Poseidon with his girlfriend in Athena's temple, which is hugely disrespectful. Another time, Athena and Poseidon competed to be the patron god for the city of Athens. Your dad created some stupid saltwater spring for his gift. My mom created the olive tree. The people saw that her gift was better, so they named the city after her. They must really like olives. Oh, forget it. Now, if she'd invented pizza, that I could understand. I said, forget it. In that case, I and Theia would have hated each other because of our parents, Naruto said. You know Theia, daughter of Zeus, since when? Percy asked. Naruto looked Grover and Annabeth. I thought you two have told him, he said. Told me, what? Percy asked. I can talk to Theia. How? Percy, I am the son of Hades. I can see her spirit, Naruto said. So, how she looks like? Percy said. She's the prettiest girl I've ever met, Naruto said. Percy and Grover froze. Annabeth saw this and asked, what happened with you two? Grover whispered lightly in her ear. Naruto was famous in all girls in school, but he hadn't liked any of them. He just ignored them. It is the first time we heard him talk about any girl, Percy whispered. You know, I could hear both of you from here, Naruto said, cold tone. Both Percy and Grover paled. Traffic slowed them down in Queens. By the time they got into Manhattan, it was sunset and starting to rain. Argus dropped them at the Greyhound station on the Upper East Side, not far from Percy's mom and Gabe's apartment. Percy saw typed to a mailbox was a soggy flyer with his picture on it. Have you seen this boy? He ripped it down before Annabeth and Grover could notice, but Naruto already saw it. Argus unloaded their bags, made sure they got bus tickets, and then drove away, the eye on the back of his hand, opening to watch them as he pulled out of the parking lot. Naruto noticed that Percy was looking off into the distance, probably thinking about his home. Grover shouldered Percy's backpack. You want to know why she married him, Percy? He said. Percy stared at him. Were you reading my mind or something? Just your emotions. Grover shrugged. Yes, I forgot to tell you, satyrs can do that. You were thinking about your mom and your stepdad, right? Percy nodded, wondering what else Grover might have forgotten to tell him. Your mom married Gabe for you, Grover told me. You call him smelly, but you've got no idea. The guy has this aura, yuck. I can smell him from here. I can smell traces of him on you, and you haven't been near him for a week. Thanks, Percy said. Where's the nearest shower? You should be grateful, Percy. Your stepfather smelled so repulsively human he could mask the presence of any demigod. As soon as I took a whiff inside his Camaro, I knew. Gabe has been covering your scent for years. If you hadn't lived with him every summer, you probably would have been found by monsters a long time ago. Your mom stayed with him to protect you. She was a smart lady. She must have loved you a lot to put up with that guy if that makes you feel any better. It didn't, but Percy forced himself not to show it. I'll see her again, he thought. She isn't gone. Percy stared a little more into the distance until they had to move on. The rain kept coming down. Percy, Annabeth and Grover got restless waiting for the bus and decided to play some hacky sack with one of Grover's apples. Annabeth was unbelievable. She could bounce the apple off her knee, her elbow, and her shoulder, whatever. Percy wasn't too bad either. From sideline, Naruto was reading a book. He saw their game. Good game for kids, he thought. The game ended when Percy tossed the apple toward Grover and it got too close to his mouth. In one mega goat bite, their hacky sack disappeared, core, stem, and all. Grover blushed. He tried to apologize, but Annabeth and Percy were too busy cracking up. Finally the bus came. As they stood in line to board, Grover started looking around, sniffing the air like he smelled his favorite school cafeteria delicacy, enchiladas. "What is it?" Percy asked. "I don't know," Grover said tensely. "Maybe it's nothing." Something isn't right here, Naruto thought. Percy could tell it wasn't anything. He was relieved when they finally got on board and found seats together in the back of the bus. They stowed their backpacks. Annabeth kept slapping her Yankees cap nervously against her thigh. As the last passengers got on, Annabeth clamped her hand onto Percy's knee. "Percy." An old lady had just boarded the bus. She wore a crumpled velvet dress, lace gloves, and a shapeless orange knit hat that shadowed her face, and she carried a big paisley purse. When she tilted her head up, her black eyes glittered. "This is Dodds," Percy thought. She was older, more withered, but definitely the same evil face. Percy scrunched down in his seat. Behind her came two older ladies. One in a green hat, one in a purple hat. Otherwise they looked exactly like Mrs. Dodds, same gnarled hands, paisley handbags, wrinkled velvet dresses. Triplet demon grandmothers. They sat in the front row, right behind the driver. The two on the aisle crossed their legs over the walkway, making an X. It was casual enough, but it sent a clear message. Nobody leaves. The bus pulled out of the station and they headed through the slick streets of Manhattan. "She didn't stay dead long," Percy said. He was trying to keep his voice from quivering. "I thought you said they could be dispelled for a lifetime." "I said if you're lucky," Annabeth said. "You're obviously not." Naruto said, "Percy, these are the right hand my father, they probably don't stay down for long. Besides, she feels more powerful than at the museum." "All three of them," Grover whimpered. "Die immortals." "It's okay," Annabeth said, obviously thinking hard. "The Furies. The three worst monsters from the underworld. No problem. No problem. We'll just slip out the windows." "They don't open," Grover moaned. "The back exit," she suggested. "There wasn't one," Naruto said. "They won't attack us with witnesses around," Percy said. "Will they?" "Mortals don't have good eyes," Annabeth said. "Their brains can only process what they see through the mist. They'll see three old ladies killing us, won't they?" Annabeth thought about it. "Hard to say. But we can't count on mortals for help. Maybe an emergency exit in the roof." "Quiet all of you," Naruto said. "I will handle them." They reached Lincoln Tunnel and the bus went dark except for the running lights down the aisle. It was eerily quiet without the sound of the rain. Mrs. Dodds got up. In a flat voice, as if she'd rehearsed it, she announced to the whole bus. "I need to use the restroom." "So do I," said the second sister. "So do I," said the third sister. They all started coming down the aisle. "I've got it," Annabeth said. "Percy, take my hat." "What?" "You're the one they want. Turn invisible and goes up the aisle. Let them pass you. Maybe you can get to the front and get away." "But you guys." "There's an outside chance they might not notice us," Annabeth said. "You're a son of the big three. Your smell might be overpowering." "But Naruto is also son of big three," Percy said. "Yes, but he is a son of Hades, their master," Grover said. "And I can handle myself," Naruto said. "I can't just leave you," Percy said. "Percy," Naruto said, in a cold tone, "go." Percy's hands trembled. He felt like a coward, but he took the Yankees cap and put it on. When Percy looked down, he saw his body wasn't there anymore. He started creeping up the aisle. He managed to get up 10 rows, then duck into an empty seat just as the Furies walked past. Mrs. Dodd stopped, sniffing, and looked straight at Percy. His heart was pounding. Apparently she didn't see anything. She and her sisters kept going. He made it to the front of the bus. They were almost through the Lincoln Tunnel now. He was about to press the emergency stop button when he heard the hideous wailing from the back row. The old ladies were not old ladies anymore. Their faces were still the same, but their bodies had shriveled into leathery brown hag bodies with bats' wings and hands and feet like gargoyle claws. Their handbags had turned into fiery whips. The Furies surrounded Grover and Annabeth, lashing their whips, hissing. "Where is it? Where?" The other people on the bus were screaming, cowering in their seats. They saw something, all right. "He's not here," Annabeth yelled. "He's gone. So go back to where you came from," Naruto said. The Furies raised their whip. Annabeth drew her bronze knife. Grover grabbed a tin can from his snack bag and prepared to throw it. As for Naruto, he was sitting there calmly. "Don't think just because you are the son of the master, we will go easy on you, boy," one of the furries said. "Really?" Naruto spoke in an emotionless tone. That sent chills down their spine. He looked at them with his Sharingan eyes and sent a killing intent toward them. "Because I don't think you three have enough power to handle me." Annabeth and Grover saw Furies were trembling with fear. Everything was going to okay, but again Percy had done something stupid, impulsive and dangerous. The bus driver was distracted, trying to see what was going on in his rearview mirror. Still invisible, he grabbed the wheel from him and jerked it to the left. Everybody howled as they were thrown to the right. "Hey!" the driver yelled. "Hey, whoa!" They wrestled for the wheel. The bus slammed against the side of the tunnel, grinding metal and throwing sparks a mile behind. The bus careened out of the Lincoln Tunnel and back into the rainstorm. People and monsters tossed around the bus, cars plowed aside like bowling pins. Somehow the driver found an exit. They shot off the highway, through half a dozen traffic lights, and ended up barreling down one of those New Jersey rural roads. There were woods to left, the Hudson River to the right, and the driver seemed to be veering toward the river. With another great idea, Percy hit the emergency brake. The bus wailed, spun a full circle on the wet asphalt, and crashed into the trees. The emergency lights came on. The door flew open. The bus driver was the first one out, the passengers yelling as they stampeded after him. Percy stepped into the driver's seat and let them pass. The Furies regained their balance. They lashed their whips at Annabeth while she waved her knife and yelled in ancient Greek, telling them to back off. Grover threw tin cans. The whole thing, Naruto didn't even move from his seat. Idiot Percy, he thought. "Hey!" Percy yelled, taking off the hat and revealing himself. The Furies turned, baring their yellow fangs at the son of Poseidon, and he instantly regretted it, which was easily seen thanks to his freaked-out expression. Mrs. Dodd stalked up the aisle, just as she used to do in class, like she was about to give him another failed paper. Every time she flicked her whip, red flames danced along the barbed leather. Her two ugly sisters hopped on top of the seats on either side of her and crawled toward him like huge nasty lizards. "Perseus Jackson," Mrs. Dodd said, in an accent that was definitely from somewhere further south than Georgia. "You have offended the gods. You shall die." "I liked you better as a math teacher," Percy said to her. She growled. Annabeth and Grover moved up behind the Furies cautiously, looking for an opening. Percy took the ballpoint pen out of his pocket and uncapped it. Riptide elongated into a shimmering double-edged sword. Mrs. Dodds growled. "Submit now," she hissed. "And you will not suffer eternal torment." "Nice try," Percy said to her. "Percy, look out," Annabeth cried. Mrs. Dodds lashed her whip around Percy's sword hand while the Furies on the either side lunged at him. Percy felt like his hand wrapped in molten lead, but he managed not to drop Riptide. He stuck the Fury on the left with its hilt, sending her toppling backward into a seat. He turned and sliced the Fury on the right. As soon as the blade connected with her neck, she screamed and exploded into dust. Annabeth got Mrs. Dodds in a wrestler's hold and yanked her backward while Grover ripped the whip out of her hands. "Ow!" he yelled. "Ow! Hot! Hot!" The Fury Percy had held slammed came at him again, talons ready, but he swung Riptide and she broke open like a pinata. Mrs. Dodds was trying to get Annabeth off her back. She kicked, clawed, hissed and bit, but Annabeth held on while Grover got Mrs. Dodds' legs tied up in her own whip. Finally they both shoved her backward into the aisle. Mrs. Dodds tried to get up, but she didn't have room to flap her bat wings, so she kept falling down. "Zeus will destroy you," she promised. "Hades will have your soul. Bracas meas besamini," Percy yelled, which oddly meant, "Eat my pants." Mr. Dude somehow managed to get free herself, but before she could attack him, a hand came out of shadow, caught her in midair. "That's enough," Naruto said. With his hand gestured, Shadow Hand choked her to death. She screamed and exploded into a dust. Suddenly, thunder shook the bus. "Get out," Annabeth yelled. "Now." They rushed outside and found the other passengers wandering around in a daze, arguing with the driver or running around in circles yelling, "We're going to die." A Hawaiian-shirted tourist with a camera snapped Percy's photograph before he could recap his sword. "Our bags," Grover realized. "We left our Uam." The windows of the bus exploded as the passengers ran for cover. Lightning shredded a huge crater in the roof. "Let's go," Naruto said. "We don't want more of a problem than we already have." Then he disappeared with Annabeth, Percy and Grover from there. Naruto, Annabeth, Grover and Percy, walking through the woods along the New Jersey riverbank, the glow of New York City making the night sky yellow behind them, and the smell of the Hudson reeks in their noses. Grover was shivering and braying, his big goat eyes turned slit-pupiled and full of terror. 3 kindly ones. All 3 at once. Percy was pretty much in shock himself. The explosion of bus windows still rang in his ears. But Annabeth kept pulling along, saying, "Come on. The farther away we get the better." "All our money was back there," Percy reminded her. "Our food and clothes. Everything." "Well, maybe if you hadn't decided to jump into the fight. What did you want me to do? Let you get killed?" "You didn't need to protect me, Percy. I would have been fine. Besides, the situation was already under control." "Sliced like sandwich bread," Grover put in, "but fine." "Shut up, the goat boy," said Annabeth. Grover brayed mournfully. "Tin cans, a perfectly good bag of tin cans." "Enough," Naruto said in a cold tone. "I have money for all of us for the trip." "You have money?" Annabeth said. Naruto said, "Yes." After a few minutes, Annabeth fell into line next to me. "Look," her voice faltered. "I appreciate you coming back for us, okay? That was really brave." "We're a team, right?" Percy asked. Annabeth was silent for a few more steps. "It's just that if you died, aside from the fact that it would really suck for you, it would mean the quest was over. This may be my only chance to see the real world." "Technically, this is a double quest, both me and Percy," Naruto interrupted. "I promise I couldn't let any of you die." "Thanks, Naruto," Annabeth said. The storm finally subsided, leaving them in total darkness as they drifted back into silence once well until Percy broke it. "You haven't left Camp Half-Blood since you were 7? He asked Annabeth. "No, only short field trips. My dad. The history professor. Yeah. It didn't work out for me living at home." "I mean, Camp Half-Blood is my home," Annabeth said. She was rushing her words out now, as if she were afraid somebody might try to stop her. "At camp you train and train. And that's all cool and everything, but the real world is where the monsters are. That's where you learn whether you're any good or not." "You're pretty good with that knife," Percy said. "You think so?" "Anybody who can piggyback ride a fury is okay by me." "You know," Annabeth said with a smile, "maybe I should tell you something funny." Back on the bus, whatever she wanted to say was interrupted by a shrill toot toot toot, like the sound of an owl being tortured. "Hey, my reed pipes still work," Grover cried. "If I could just remember a Find Path song, we could get out of these woods." He puffed out a few notes, but the tune still sounded suspiciously like Hilary Duff. Instead of finding a path, Percy immediately slammed into a tree and got a nice-sized knot on his head. Add to the list of superpowers I did not have. Infrared vision, Percy thought. "Be careful, Percy," Naruto said. "I can't see where I am going." "It's too dark in here," Percy said. "This will help you," Naruto said as a glowing white orb appeared in his left hand and spread its dull light on the path. "Wow." Grover said, "Thanks, Naruto." "Yes," Annabeth said. "Thanks." "How many powers you have, Naruto?" Percy asked in a surprised tone. "I'm a man of many skills, Percy," Naruto said with a smirk. After another few miles, they saw neon light up ahead. Percy smelled food. Then he realized he hadn't eaten anything unhealthy since he had arrived at Half-Blood Hill, where they lived on grapes, bread, cheese, and extra lean cut nymph-prepared barbecue. "I need a double cheeseburger," he thought. They kept walking until they saw a deserted 2-lane road through the trees. On the other side was a closed-down gas station, a tattered billboard for a 199's movie, and one open business, which was the source of the neon light. It wasn't a fast food restaurant like Percy hoped. It was one of those weird roadside curio shops that sell lawn flamingos and wooden Indians and cement grizzly bears and stuff like that. The main building was a long, low warehouse, surrounded by acres of statuary. The neon sign above the gate was impossible for normal demigods to read, because if there's anything worse for their dyslexia than regular English, it's red cursive neon English. To Percy and Annabeth, it looked like Adnum Sgtera and Gomen Meperum. "What the heck does that say?" Percy asked. "I don't know," Annabeth said. She loved reading so much, I'd forgotten she was dyslexic, too, Percy thought. "Auntie M's Garden Gnome Emporium, weird name," Naruto said. Flanking the entrance, as advertised, were 2 cement garden gnomes, ugly bearded little runts, smiling and waving, as if they were about to get their picture taken. They crossed the street following the smell of the hamburgers. "Hey," Grover warned. "The lights are on inside," Annabeth said. "Maybe it's open." "Snack bar," Percy said wistfully. "Snack bar," Annabeth agreed. "Are you too crazy?" "This place is weird," Grover said. "Naruto, please say something." Grover noticed Naruto wasn't looking at him. Then he saw in front there was a lot forest of statues. Cement animals, cement children, even a cement satyr playing the pipes, which gave him the creeps. "Blah ha ha," he bleated. Looks like my Uncle Ferdinand. They stopped at the warehouse door. Don't knock, Grover pleaded. I smell monsters. Your nose is clogged up from the furies, Annabeth said to him. All I smell is burgers. Aren't you hungry? Meat. Grover said scornfully. I'm a vegetarian. You eat cheese enchiladas and aluminum cans, Percy said. Those are vegetables. Come on. Let's leave. These statues are looking at me. I am agreeing with Grover. There is something weird about those statues and the whole place, Naruto said. Annabeth and Percy surprised at this, but before they could say anything the door creaked open. They saw standing in front of us was a tall Middle Eastern woman at least, they assumed she was Middle Eastern because she wore a long black gown that covered everything but her hands and her head was completely veiled. Her eyes glinted behind a curtain of black gauze. Her coffee-colored hands looked old but well manicured and elegant. She said, "Children, it is too late to be out all alone. Where are your parents?" Her accent sounded vaguely Middle Eastern. "We're Annabeth started to say. "We're orphans," Percy said. "Orphans?" the woman said. The word sounded alien in her mouth. "But, my dears. Surely not. We got separated from our caravan," Percy said. "Our circus caravan. The ringmaster told us to meet him at the gas station if we got lost, but he may have forgotten, or maybe he meant a different gas station. Anyway, we're lost. Is that food I smell?" "Oh, my dears," the woman said. "You must come in, poor children. I am Auntie M. Go straight through to the back of the warehouse, please. There is a dining area." They thanked her and went inside. Annabeth muttered to Percy, "Circus caravan. Always have a strategy, right? Your head is full of kelp." Naruto's eyes narrowed on the woman. There is something odd about her. I have to keep eyes on her, he thought. He went inside. The warehouse was filled with more statues, people in all different poses, wearing all different outfits and with different expressions on their faces. Percy and Annabeth were hungry. They never noticed Grover's nervous whispers, or the way the statues' eyes seemed to follow them, or the fact that Auntie M had locked the door behind them. All they cared about was finding the dining area. As soon as they go to the back of the place, they noticed a fast food counter with a grill, a soda fountain, a pretzel heater, and a nacho cheese dispenser. Everything you could want, plus a few steel picnic tables out front. "Please, sit down," Auntie M said. "Awesome," Percy said. Auntie M said, "And this is free. It is my treat for such nice orphans." "Thank you, ma'am," Annabeth said. Auntie M stiffened, as if Annabeth had done something wrong, but then the old woman relaxed just as quickly. Only Naruto noticed this. "Quite all right, Annabeth," she said. "You have such beautiful gray eyes, child." How she knew Annabeth's name. We had never introduced ourselves, Naruto thought. Their hostess disappeared behind the snack counter and started cooking. Before we knew it, she'd brought us plastic trays heaped with double cheeseburgers, vanilla shakes, and XXL servings of French fries. Naruto only ate because he didn't smell anything wrong with them. He was slowly eating his food, but it kept eyeing on the woman. Percy was halfway through my burger before he remembered to breathe, and Annabeth slurped her shake. Grover picked at the fries and eyed the tray waxed paper liner as if he might go for that, but he still looked too nervous to eat. "What's that hissing noise?" he asked. Percy listened, but didn't hear anything. Annabeth shook her head. "Snakes," Naruto thought. "Hissing?" Auntie M asked. "Perhaps you hear the deep fryer oil. You have keen ears, Grover." "I take vitamins." "For my ears," Grover said. "That's admirable," Auntie M said. "But please, relax." She ate nothing. She hadn't taken off her headdress, even to cook, and now she sat forward and interlaced her fingers and watched them eat. Percy was feeling satisfied after the burger and a little sleepy, but he decided to be nice and make some small talk their hostess. "So, you sell gnomes," he said, trying to sound interested. "Oh, yes," Auntie M said. "And animals. And people. Anything for the garden. Custom orders. Statuary is very popular, you know. A lot of business on this road." "Not so much, no. Since the highway was built, most cars, they are not going this way now. I must cherish every customer I get." Suddenly Percy felt somebody else was looking at him. He turned, but it was just a statue of a young girl holding an Easter basket. The detail was incredible, much better than most garden statues. But something was wrong with her face. It looked as if she were startled or even terrified. Naruto narrowed his eyes on the statue. He activated his Sharingan and saw the faint energy signature on all states. These were real people, he thought. "Ah," Auntie M said sadly to Percy. "You notice some of my creations do not turn out well. They are marred. They do not sell. The face is the hardest to get right. Always the face." "You make these statues yourself?" Percy asked. "Oh, yes. Once upon a time, I had two sisters to help me in the business, but they have passed on, and Auntie M is alone. I have only my statues. This is why I make them, you see. They are my company. The sadness in her voice sounded so deep and so real that Percy couldn't help feeling sorry for her. Annabeth had stopped eating. She sat forward and said, "Two sisters. It's a terrible story," Auntie M said. "Not one for children, really. You see, Annabeth, a bad woman was jealous of me, long ago, when I was young. I had a boyfriend, you know, and this bad woman was determined to break us apart. She caused a terrible accident. My sisters stayed with me. They shared my bad fortune as long as they could, but eventually they passed on. They faded away. I alone have survived, but at a price. Such a price. Medusa, so she is Medusa," Naruto thought. Percy wasn't sure what she meant, but he felt bad for her. Poor old lady. Who would want to hurt somebody so nice? He thought. Naruto looked at Annabeth and gave her a barely noticeable nod. "Percy?" Annabeth said and shook Percy to get his attention. "Maybe we should go. I mean, the ringmaster will be waiting." Percy noticed she sounded tense. He wasn't sure why. Grover was eating the waxed paper off the tray now and Naruto, his eyes become cold, but if Auntie M found that all strange, she didn't say anything. "Such beautiful gray eyes," Auntie M told Annabeth again. "My, yes, it has been a long time since I've seen gray eyes like those." She reached out as if to stroke Annabeth's cheek, but Annabeth stood up abruptly. "We really should go." "Yes." Grover swallowed his waxed paper and stood up. "The ringmaster is waiting." "Right. Let's go, Percy," Naruto said. Percy didn't want to leave. He felt full and content. Auntie M was so nice. He wanted to stay with her a while. "Please, dears," Auntie M pleaded. "I so rarely get to be with children. Before you go, won't you at least sit for a pose?" "A pose?" Annabeth asked warily. "A photograph. I would use it to model a new statue set. Children are so popular, you see. Everyone loves children." Annabeth shifted her weight from foot to foot. "I don't think we can, ma'am." "Come on, Percy." "Sure we can," Percy said. He was irritated with Annabeth for being so bossy, so rude to an old lady who just fed us for free. "It's just a photo, Annabeth. What's the harm?" Idiot, Naruto thought. "Yes, Annabeth," the woman purred. "No harm." Percy could tell Annabeth and Naruto didn't like it, but they allowed Auntie M to lead them back out the front door, into the garden of statues. Auntie M directed them to a park bench next to the stone satyr. "Now," Auntie M said, "I'll just position you correctly. The young girl in the middle, I think, and the two young gentlemen on either side, or the last handsome boy behind the girl since he is a bit taller." "Not much light for a photo," Percy remarked. "Oh, enough," Auntie M said. "Enough for us to see each other, yes." "Where's your camera?" Grover asked. Auntie M stepped back, as if to admire the shot. "Now, the face is the most difficult. Can you smile for me please, everyone?" A large smile. Grover glanced at the cement satyr next to him and mumbled, "That sure does look like Uncle Ferdinand." "Grover," Auntie M chastised, "look this way, dear." She still had no camera in her hands. "Percy," Annabeth said. Percy wanted to listen to Annabeth, but he was fighting the sleepy feeling, the comfortable lull that came from the food and the old lady's voice. "I will just be a moment," Auntie M said. "You know, I can't see you very well in this cursed veil." "Percy, something's wrong," Annabeth insisted. "Wrong?" Auntie M said, reaching up to undo the wrap around her head. "Not at all, dear. I have such noble company tonight. What could be wrong?" "That is Uncle Ferdinand." Grover gasped. "Look away from her," Annabeth shouted. Naruto disappeared in a burst of crows, and all crows began to attack on Auntie M. While Annabeth whipped her Yankees cap onto her head and vanished. She pushed Grover and Percy both off the bench. Percy was on the ground. He heard Grover scrambling off in one direction, Annabeth in another. But he was too dazed to move. He heard Auntie M screamed. "Ah. What is this?" Auntie M screamed in pain as the crows began to peck and tear her flesh from her bone. Ah. She was eaten alive by crows. Then it stopped. She was still standing, where she had been from the start. "Did you enjoy the show?" Naruto said from somewhere. "I would enjoy killing you, son of death," Auntie M shouted angrily. "Yes, but you don't have enough power to kill me." Auntie M said, "I'll see you later, but first." She turned her attention to Percy and smiled. Percy was freaking out. "Heard a strange rasping sound above me." His eyes rose to Auntie M's hands, which had turned gnarled and warty, with sharp bronze talons for fingernails. He almost looked higher, but somewhere off to his left Annabeth screamed, "No. Don't." Percy couldn't move. He stared at Auntie M's gnarled claws and tried to fight the groggy trance the old woman had put him in. "Such a pity to destroy a handsome young face," Auntie M said to Percy soothingly. "Stay with me, Percy. All you have to do is look up." Percy fought the urge to obey. Instead he looked to one side and saw one of those glass spheres people put the gardens a gazing ball. He could see Auntie M's dark reflection in the orange glass. Her headdress was gone, revealing her face as a shimmering pale circle. Her hair was moving, writhing like serpents. Auntie M, how could I have been so stupid? He thought. The gray-eyed one did this to me, Percy, Medusa said, and she didn't sound anything like a monster. Annabeth's mother, the cursed Athena, turned me from a beautiful woman into this. Don't listen to her. Annabeth's voice shouted, somewhere in the statuary. Run, Percy. Silence. Medusa snarled. Then her voice modulated back to a comforting purr. You see why I must destroy the girl, Percy. She is my enemy's daughter. I shall crush her statue to dust. But you, dear Percy, you need not suffer. No, Percy muttered. He tried to make his legs move. Do you really want to help the gods? Medusa asked. Do you understand what awaits you on this foolish quest, Percy? What will happen if you reach the underworld? Do not be a pawn of the Olympians, my dear. You would be better off as a statue. Less pain. Less pain. Idiot, Naruto said from somewhere. Suddenly an invisible force landed on Medusa and sent her away from Percy. Erg. She yelled, her snake hair hissing and spitting. Percy scrambled away and hid in the statuary. Right next to him, Annabeth's voice said, Percy. Percy jumped so high his feet nearly cleared a garden gnome. Geez. Don't do that. Annabeth took off her Yankees cap and became visible. You have to cut her head off. What? Are you crazy? Let Naruto handle her. Percy, you have to do this your own, Naruto said as he appeared next to him, further scaring him. Percy asked, why? Percy, I won't always be there to protect you. You have to learn to defend yourself, Naruto said. Percy was unsure about that, but Annabeth said, Medusa is a menace. She's evil. I'd kill her myself, but she swallowed, as if she were about to make a difficult admission. But you've got the better weapon. Besides, I'd never get close to her. She'd slice me to bits because of my mother. You've got a chance. What? I can't, Percy said. Look, do you want her turning more innocent people into statues? She pointed to a pair of statue lovers, a man and a woman with their arms around each other, turned to stone by the monster. Annabeth grabbed a green gazing ball from a nearby pedestal. A polished shield would be better. She studied the sphere critically. The convexity will cause some distortion. The reflection size should be off by a factor of. Would you speak English? I am. Annabeth said and she tossed him the glass ball. Just look at her in the glass. Never look at her directly. Hey, guys. Grover yelled somewhere above them. I think she's unconscious. Rower. Maybe not, Grover corrected. Hurry up, Annabeth said. She whipped her Yankees cap onto her head and vanished. Good luck, Percy, Grover said. He went into hiding. Good luck, Naruto said. Use the lessons Chiron taught you back in school, use your brain on this one. His eyes turned red and he slowly sank into the ground. Easy for you, Percy thought. He took out his pen and uncapped it. The bronze blade of Riptide elongated in his hand. He followed the hissing and spitting sounds of Medusa's hair. He kept his eyes locked on the gazing ball, so he would only glimpse a Medusa's reflection, not the real thing. Then, in the green-tinted glass, he saw her. He yelled, hey. Percy advanced on her, which wasn't easy, holding a sword and a glass ball. She let him approach 20 feet, 10 feet. He saw the reflection of her face. Surely it wasn't really that ugly. The green swirls of the gazing ball must be distorting it, making it look worse, he thought. You wouldn't harm an old woman, Percy, Medusa said. I know you wouldn't. Percy hesitated, fascinated by the face he saw reflected in the glass, the eyes that seemed to burn straight through the green tint, making his arms go weak. Percy, don't listen to her. Grover shouted from his hiding. Medusa cackled. Too late. She lunged at Percy with her talons. Percy slashed up with his sword and then heard a sickening shock. Then a hiss like wind rushing out of a cavern, the sound of a monster disintegrating. Something fell to the ground next to his foot. It took all his willpower not to look. He could feel the warm ooze soaking into his sock, little dying snake heads tugging at his shoelaces. Oh, yuck, Grover said. His eyes were still tightly closed. Mega yuck. Annabeth came up next to him, her eyes fixed on the sky. She was holding Medusa's black veil. She said, don't move. Very, very carefully, without looking down, she knelt and draped the monster's head in black cloth, then picked it up. It was still dripping green juice. Good job, Percy, Naruto said. He suddenly rose from the ground like ghosts and freaked out all of them. Don't do that, Naruto, Annabeth shouted. Naruto ignored her and asked Percy, are you okay? Yeah, Percy decided, though he felt like throwing up his double cheeseburger. Naruto saw Percy's sick face. This will help you, he said. He put his hand on his head and used medical jutsu. Thanks. Percy felt much better. Why didn't the head evaporate? He asked. Once you sever it, it becomes a spoil of war, Annabeth said. Same as your Minotaur's horn. But don't unwrap the head. it can still petrify you. Percy recapped his sword. Together, they stumbled back to the warehouse. They found some old plastic grocery bags behind the snack counter and double-wrapped Medusa's head. They plopped it on the table where they had eaten dinner and sat around it. Percy said, "So we have Athena to thank for this monster?" Annabeth flashed him an irritated look. "Your dad, actually. Don't you remember? Medusa was Poseidon's girlfriend. They decided to meet in my mother's temple. That's why Athena turned her into a monster. Medusa and her two sisters who had helped her get into the temple, they became the three Gorgons. That's why Medusa wanted to slice me up, but she wanted to preserve you as a nice statue. She's still sweet on your dad. You probably reminded her of him." Percy's face was burning. "Oh, so now it's my fault we met Medusa." Annabeth straightened. In a bad imitation of Percy's voice, she said, "It's just a photo, Annabeth. What's the harm?" "Forget it," Percy said. "You're impossible. You're insufferable. You're—" "Hey." Grover interrupted. "You two are giving me a migraine, and satyrs don't even get migraines. What are you going to do with the head, Percy?" Naruto asked. Percy stared at the thing. One little snake was hanging out of a hole in the plastic. The words printed on the side of the bag said, "We appreciate your business." He was angry, not just with Annabeth or her mom, but with all the gods for this whole quest, for getting them blown off the road and in two major fights the very first day out from camp. At this rate, they had never made it to LA alive, much less before the summer solstice. What had Medusa said? Percy thought. "Do not be a pawn of the Olympians, my dear. You would be better off as a statue." He got up. "I'll be back." "Percy," Annabeth called after me. "What are you?" Percy searched the back of the warehouse until he found Medusa's office. Her account book showed her 6 most recent sales, all shipments to the underworld to decorate Hades and Persephone's garden. According to one freight bill, the underworld's billing address was Doe Recording Studios, West Hollywood, California. He folded up the bill. "So this is the underworld's address," Naruto said, who appeared behind him. "Why yes," Percy said, and stuffed address in his pocket. In the cash register they found $20, a few golden drachmas, and some packing slips for the Hermes Overnight Express, each with a little leather bag attached for coins. Percy rummaged around the rest of the office until he found the right size box. They went back to the picnic table, packed up Medusa's head, and filled out a delivery slip. The gods. Mount Olympus. 6th floor. Empire State Building. New York, New York. With best wishes. Percy Jackson. "They're not going to like that," Grover warned. "They'll think you're impertinent." "But I like it," Naruto said with a smirk. "You will, Naruto," Grover said. Percy poured some golden drachmas in the pouch. As soon as he closed it, there was a sound like a cash register. The package floated off the table and disappeared with a pop. "I am impertinent," Percy said. He looked at Annabeth, daring her to criticize. She didn't. She seemed resigned to the fact that he had a major talent for ticking off the gods. "Come on," she muttered. "We need a new plan." Naruto, Percy, Annabeth and Grover camped out in the woods, 100 yards from the main road, in a marshy clearing that local kids had obviously been used for parties. The ground was littered with flattened soda cans and fast food wrappers. "Well, this probably not the best place to camp out," Percy said. Grover said, "It's okay, Percy. We have some food and blankets." "And we don't have any option," Annabeth said. Naruto said, "Yes, we have another option." He stopped in a clearing suddenly, they all looked at him. He began to make hand seals and said while slamming his hands in the ground. "Lokuten Hijutsu, Shichuken no Jutsu, wood release, 4 pillars house technique." Many roots started coming from the ground. They started growing and twisting together. It took them about a minute to finish. By the time it did, Naruto was on top of a fully formed house. The other gawked at the building that just materialized out of the ground. "Wow." Annabeth, Percy and Grover thought. "There's plenty of space for all so you can sleep inside instead of outside," Naruto said. They entered the house and their jaws dropped when they saw the inside. It was furnished, there were couches and soft rugs on the floor. "That is awesome," Grover said. "Thanks," Naruto said, "go to sleep. I'm going to watch first." "Why?" Percy asked. "In case any more monsters come after us, that way we won't be surprised," Naruto explained. "Thanks, Naruto," Annabeth said. She took a blanket and slept on the couch. "That was fast," Percy said. "Percy, we all have a rough day," Grover said. "Rough for you not me," Naruto said, and he disappeared. Naruto appeared on the roof. He started to make some hand sign. "Kuchius no Jutsu." With a puff of smoke crows appeared. "Guard the house," he said. All crows melt in shadow. Time to meet Theia, Naruto thought. He sat on the roof and closed his eyes. But Theia was sitting alone and was thinking about Naruto. "It's only a few days, and I already miss him," she thought as she looked at the necklace, which Naruto had given to her. She thought of their kiss. "He is good. Blush was visible on her face. She saw necklace started to shine brightly, and with a bright flash Naruto appeared front of him. "Naruto," Theia said happily as she stood up and tried to hug him, but she phased out him. "Hush." Naruto said, "Theia, I'm only a projection. The real me is on quest." "Sorry." "No problem, but one thing's sure. You missed me a lot." Theia's face turned bright red. "Whatever," she said. "So what happened in your quest?" "We fought with the Furies and Medusa." "What?" Theia shouted. "Are you alright?" "We are fine," Naruto said. "Sit down, let me tell you the whole story." Naruto told her the whole story. How they fought Furies and Medusa. With other. Percy came out from the house and he saw Grover was sitting on the lowest bough of a tree. "Go ahead and sleep," Percy said. "I'll wake you if there's trouble." He saw Naruto wasn't there. "Where is Naruto?" "He is on the roof," Grover said as put his back to the trunk and stared at the night sky. "It makes me sad, Percy." "What does?" "The fact that you signed up for this stupid quest." "No, this makes me sad." Grover pointed at all the garbage on the ground. "And the sky. You can't even see the stars. They've polluted the sky. This is a terrible time to be a sadder." "Oh, yeah. I guess you'd be an environmentalist." Grover glared at him. "Only a human wouldn't be. Your species are clogging up the world so fast. Never mind. It's useless to lecture a human. At the rate things are going, I'll never find Pan." "Pam? Like the cooking spray?" "Percy, he means Pan, Pan, god of the wild places," Naruto said from behind them. "Yeah, him, that is why I need to get a searcher's license. That way, I will be able to search for him, like my dad and Uncle Ferdinand," Grover said. A strange breeze rustled through the clearing, temporarily overpowering the stink of trash and muck. It brought the smell of berries and wildflowers and clean rainwater, things that might have once been in these woods. Suddenly Percy was nostalgic for something he had never known. "Tell me about the search," he said. Grover looked at Percy cautiously, as if he were afraid he was just making fun. "The god of wild places disappeared 2,000 years ago," Grover said to them. A sailor off the coast of Ephesus heard a mysterious voice crying out from the shore, "Tell them that the great god Pan has died." When humans heard the news, they believed it. They've been pillaging Pan's kingdom ever since. But for the satyrs, Pan was our lord and master. He protected us and the wild places of the earth. We refused to believe that he died. In every generation, the bravest satyrs pledged their lives to finding Pan. They searched the earth, exploring all the wildest places, hoping to find where he is hidden and wake him from his sleep. "And you want to be a searcher?" Percy asked. "It's my life's dream," Grover said. "My father was a searcher. And my Uncle Ferdinand, the statue you saw back there." "Oh, right, sorry." Grover shook his head. "Uncle Ferdinand knew the risks. So did my dad. But I'll succeed. I'll be the first searcher to return alive." "Hang on the first." Grover took his reed pipes out of his pocket. "No searcher has ever come back. Once they set out, they disappear. They're never seen alive again." "Not once in 2,000 years?" "No." "And your dad? You have no idea what happened to him?" "None." "But you still want to go," Percy said, amazed. "I mean, you really think you'll be the one to find Pan?" "I have to believe that, Percy. Every searcher does. It's the only thing that keeps us from despair when we look at what humans have done to the world. I have to believe Pan can still be awakened." Percy stared at the orange haze of the sky and tried to understand how Grover could pursue a dream that seemed so hopeless. Then again, was I any better? He thought. "How are we going to get into the underworld?" he asked. "I mean, what chance do we have against a god?" "I don't know," Grover admitted. "But back at Medusa's, when you and Naruto were searching her office. Annabeth was telling me." "Oh, I forgot. Annabeth will have a plan all figured out." Grover said, "Don't be so hard on her, Percy. She's had a tough life, but she's a good person. After all, she forgave me," his voice faltered. "What do you mean?" Percy asked. "Forgave you for what?" Suddenly, Grover seemed very interested in playing the notes on his pipes. "Theia," Naruto said. "Percy, he was her kipper." "What?" Percy shouted. "Percy, I don't want to talk about it," Grover said, and his quivering lower lip suggested he'd start crying if Percy pressed him. "Grover, don't be sad," Naruto said. "That wasn't your fault." "Thanks, Naruto," Grover said. He looked at Percy. "But as I was saying, back at Medusa's, Annabeth and I agreed there's something strange going on with this quest. Something isn't what it seems." "Well, duh. I and Naruto are getting blamed for stealing a thunderbolt," Percy said. "That's not what I mean," Grover said. The kindly ones were sort of holding back. Like Mrs. Dodds at Yancey Academy, why did she wait so long to try to kill you? Then on the bus, they just weren't as aggressive as they would have been. They seemed plenty aggressive to me." Grover shook his head. "They were screeching at us." "Where is it?" "Where?" Asking about me, Percy said. Maybe, but Annabeth and we both got the feeling they weren't asking about a person. They said where is it? They seemed to be asking about an object. That doesn't make sense. It did make sense, Percy, Naruto said. Something has been stolen from my father, which isn't Zeus's master bolt. Grover, yes, but if we've misunderstood something about this quest and we only have 9 days to find the master bolt. He looked at them like he was hoping for answers, but they didn't have any answer. I haven't been straight with all of you, Percy said. I don't care about the master bolt. I agreed to go to the underworld so I could bring back my mother. We already know that, Naruto said. Grover blew a soft note on his pipes. Yes. But are you sure that's the only reason? I'm not doing it to help my father. He doesn't care about me. I don't care about him, Percy said. Really? Naruto said. Grover gazed down from his tree branch. Look, Percy, I'm not as smart as Annabeth. I'm not as brave as you. I'm not as strong as Naruto. But I'm pretty good at reading emotions. You're glad your dad is alive. You feel good that he's claimed you, and part of you wants to make him proud. That's why you mailed Medusa's head to Olympus. You wanted him to notice what you'd done. Yeah? Well, maybe satyr emotions work differently than human emotions. Because you're wrong. I don't care what he thinks. Percy said, a bit irritated. Grover pulled his feet up onto the branch. Okay, Percy. Whatever. Besides, I haven't done anything worth bragging about. We barely got out of New York and we're stuck here with no money, well, except for whatever Naruto has got, and no way west. Naruto looked at them. That's enough, both of you, he said. Go to sleep. But Percy wanted to protest, but Naruto gave him a cold look. He nodded. Good, Naruto said. He saw both Percy and Grover left. He looked at the sky and thought, what I'm going to do now. Then he saw Crash. I know. Amaterasu. In Percy's dream. Percy stood in a dark cavern before a gaping pit. Grey mist creatures churned all around him, whispering rags of smoke that he somehow knew were the spirits of the dead. They tugged at his clothes, trying to pull him back, but he felt compelled to walk forward to the very edge of the chasm. The pit yawned so wide and was so completely black, Percy knew it must be bottomless. Yet he had a feeling that something was trying to rise from the abyss, something huge and evil. The little hero, an amused voice echoed far down in the darkness. Too weak, too young, but perhaps you will do. The voice was ancient, cold and heavy. It wrapped around Percy like sheets of lead. They have misled you, boy, it said. Barter with me. I will give you what you want. The shimmering image hovered over the void. Percy's mother, Sally, frozen at the moment she dissolved in a shower of gold. Her face was distorted with pain, as if the Minotaur were still squeezing her neck. Her eyes looked directly at him, pleading. Go. Percy tried to cry out, but his voice wouldn't work. Cold laughter echoed from the chasm. An invisible force pulled him forward. Help me rise, boy. The voice became hungrier. Bring me the bolt. Strike a blow against the treacherous Go. That's enough. A familiar voice shouted. Suddenly the whole world turned red, and with a flock of crows, Naruto appeared front of Percy. Last time what I told you, Naruto said. You are not welcome here, not in my mind nor Percy's. You disrespectful child. I will. Save it, Naruto said in a cold tone. Go back. He sent shockwave everywhere. Percy saw the image of his mother began to fade. What is this, Naruto? He asked. Percy, someone is trying to manipulate you, Naruto said. We can talk about it later. Now wake up. Percy felt someone was shaking him. His eyes opened, and it was daylight. Well, Annabeth said, the zombie lives. Percy was trembling from the dream. How long was I asleep? Long enough for me to cook breakfast. Annabeth tossed him a bag of nacho-flavored corn chips from Auntie M's snack bar. Grover and Naruto, they are gone for the exploring. Also come with me, you like to see this. They came out from the house. Percy's jaw dropped on the ground when he saw front sight. Yesterday where trash was, now there was beautiful flowers, green grass and trees. Beautiful, isn't it? Familiar voice said behind him. Whoa. Percy said. He saw Naruto. Naruto, how many times I told you not to do that? Whatever, Percy, Naruto said. So you liked my work? You did that? Percy said as he pointed at a site. Naruto nodded. How? You mean this, Naruto said. He started to make hand sign and shouted, Mokuten. Jukai Kantan, would release. Nativity of a sea of trees, in few seconds, he turned the remaining area into a vast forest, complete with trees. How many powers you have, Naruto? Percy said. I'm a man of many skills, Percy, Naruto said with a smirk. Percy looked around and saw Grover was sitting cross-legged on a blanket with something fuzzy in his lap, a dirty, unnaturally pink stuffed animal. No. It wasn't a stuffed animal. It was a pink poodle, Percy thought. The poodle yapped at Percy suspiciously. Grover said, no, he's not. Percy blinked. Are you talking to that thing? This thing, Grover warned, is our ticket west. Be nice to him. You can talk to animals? Percy asked. Naruto said, considering he is part animal, then yes. Percy, meet Gladiola. Gladiola, Percy. Percy stared at Annabeth and Naruto, figuring they did crack up at this practical joke they were playing with him, but they looked deadly serious. I'm not saying hello to a pink poodle, he said. Forget it. Percy, Annabeth said. I said hello to the poodle. You say hello to the poodle. The poodle growled. Hello poodle, Percy said. Grover explained that he'd come across Gladiola in the woods and they'd struck up a conversation. The poodle had run away from a rich local family who'd posted a $2 reward for his return. Gladiola didn't really want to go back to his family, but he was willing to if it meant helping Grover. How does Gladiola know about the reward? Percy asked. He read the signs, Grover said. Duh. Of course, Percy said. Silly me. So we turn in Gladiola, Annabeth explained in her best strategy voice, we get money and we buy tickets to Los Angeles. Simple. And we don't want to use my money? Naruto asked. We will use that in an emergency, Annabeth explained. Alright. Naruto said. Percy thought about his dream. The whispering voices of the dead, the thing in the chasm, and my mother's face, shimmering as it dissolved into gold. All that might be waiting. For me in the West, then Naruto, what was he doing in my dream? And how he did it? He looked Naruto. I'll ask him later. Not another bus, Percy said wearily. No, Annabeth agreed. She pointed downhill, toward train tracks he hadn't been able to see last night in the dark. There's an Amtrak station half a mile that way. According to Gladiola, the westbound train leaves at noon. Chapter 14. My new pet. They spent 2 days on the Amtrak train, heading west through the hills, over rivers, past amber waves of grain. They weren't attacked once, but they didn't relax. They still kept their guard up. They tried to keep a low profile because Percy's name and picture were splattered over the front pages of several East Coast newspapers. The Trenton Register News showed a photo taken by a tourist as he got off the Greyhound bus. He had a wild look in the eyes. The picture's caption reads, 12-year-old Percy Jackson, wanted for questioning in the Long Island disappearance of his mother 2 weeks ago, is shown here fleeing from the bus where he accosted several elderly female passengers. The bus exploded on an East New Jersey roadside shortly after Jackson fled the scene. Based on eyewitness accounts, police believe the boy may be traveling with 2 teenage accomplices. His stepfather, Gabe Ugliano, has offered a cash reward for information leading to his capture. Don't worry, Annabeth said. Mortal police could never find us. For some reason, she did not sound all that sure about it. I have one question, Percy said. He turned at Naruto. Why they don't know anything about you? He asked. Because I had put illusion on me, Naruto said. Then why don't you do that on us? Grover asked. Because you never asked, Naruto said calmly. They sweat-dropped his answer. The rest of the day Percy spent alternately pacing the length of the train or looking out the windows. On the way to their destination, Percy spotted a family of centaurs galloping across a wheat field, bows at the ready, as they hunted lunch. The little boy centaur, who was the size of a second grader on a pony, caught his eye and waved. He looked around the passenger car, but nobody else had noticed. The adult riders all had their faces buried in laptop computers or magazines. Another time, toward evening, he saw something huge moving through the woods. It was a lion, except that lions don't live wild in America, and this thing was the size of a Hummer. Its fur glinted gold in the evening light. Then it leaped through the trees and was gone. They hadn't got berths in the sleeper car, so they tried to sleep on the train. Percy's neck got stiff. He tried not to drool and sleep, since Annabeth was sitting right next to him. Naruto was in meditation, and Grover kept snoring. Once, Grover shuffled around and his fake foot fell off. Annabeth and Percy had to stick it back on before any of the other passengers noticed. So, Annabeth asked Percy, once they had gotten Grover's sneaker readjusted. What had happened in your dream? What do you mean? You just mumbled something in the sleep. Percy was reluctant to say anything. It was the second time he had dreamed about the evil voice from the pit. But it bothered him so much he finally told her. Annabeth was quiet for a long time. That doesn't sound like Hades. He always appears on a black throne, and he never laughs. He offered my mother in trade. Who else could do that? I guess if he meant help me rise from the underworld. If he wants war with the Olympians. But why ask you to bring him the Master Bolt if he already has it? Because it wasn't my father, Naruto's sudden voice made them jump. What do you mean? Annabeth asked. Someone is trying to manipulate Percy, Naruto said. Someone who is a lot darker than my father. How? How I am so sure. Naruto said. Because I was in his dream. Annabeth shouted. What? Yes. He was in my dream, Annabeth Percy said. So who do you think he is? Annabeth asked Naruto. A giant hole in the ground and the dead feared it. I would say a titan our grandfather, Naruto said. That statement made Annabeth gasp and Percy's eyes widened. Even so. Annabeth recovered. We can't barter with either one of them. Kronos is an evil titan, and Hades can't really be trusted. He's deceitful, heartless, and greedy. I don't care if he kindly ones weren't as aggressive this time. This time? Percy asked. You mean you've run into them before? Naruto saw Annabeth's hand crept up to her necklace. She fingered a glazed white bead painted with the image of a pine tree, one of her clay end of summer tokens. Let's just say I've got no love for the Lord of the Dead. You can't be tempted to make a deal for your mom, she said. You blame my father for Theia's condition. Am I right? Naruto asked. Why yes, Annabeth said. Are you angry at me? She asked. No, why should I angry at you? Naruto asked. Because he is your father, Annabeth said. Yes, but I've never met him, Naruto said. Also don't worry about Theia. I have promised her that I will find a way to free her. Annabeth said, thanks. What would you do if your father were kidnapped like my mother? Percy asked Annabeth. That's easy, Annabeth said. I'd leave him to rot. Percy said, you're not serious. Annabeth's gray eyes fixed on Percy. She wore the same expression she'd worn in the woods at camp the moment she drew her sword against a hellhound. My dad's resented me since the day I was born, Percy, she said. He never wanted a baby. When he got me, he asked Athena to take me back and raise me on Olympus because he was too busy with his work. She wasn't happy about that. She told him heroes had to be raised by their mortal parent. But how I guess you weren't born in a hospital. I appeared on my father's doorstep in a golden cradle carried down from Olympus by Zephyr the west wind. You'd think my dad would remember that as a miracle, right? Like, maybe he'd take some digital photos or something. But he always talked about my arrival as if it were the most inconvenient thing that had ever happened to him. When I was 5 he got married and totally forgot about Athena. He got a regular mortal wife and had 2 regular mortal kids and tried to pretend I didn't exist. Naruto didn't say anything and Percy didn't know what to say to that, so he looked out the window just as the lights of nearby city passed by. He wanted to make her feel better after she said all that. My mom married a really awful guy, Percy started and she turned her head back to him. Grover said she did it to protect me, to hide me in the scent of a human family. Maybe that's what your dad was thinking. Annabeth kept worrying at her necklace. She was pinching the gold college ring that hung with the beads. It was probably her dad's, Percy thought. He doesn't care about me, Annabeth said. His wife, my stepmom, treated me like a freak. She wouldn't let me play with her children. My dad went along with her. Whenever something dangerous happened, something with monsters, they would both look at me resentfully, like, how dare you put our family at risk. Finally, I took the hint. I wasn't wanted. I ran away. How old were you? Same age as when I started camp. 7. But you couldn't have gotten all the way to Half-Blood Hill by yourself. Not alone, no. Athena watched over me, guided me to help. I made a couple of unexpected friends who took care of me, for a short time, anyway. I think that all half-blood has crap childhoods, Naruto said. They did agree with him. So what was your childhood like, Naruto? Annabeth asked. My whole life I saw nothing but blood, war and death, Naruto said. He looked toward Annabeth. I have something for you, Annabeth. Take my hand. Why? Trust me, Naruto said. Annabeth nodded and put her hand on his hand. Now close your eyes. She closed her eyes. Annabeth felt some pulling sensation. Now open your eyes, Naruto said. When Annabeth opened her eyes, she found herself in a dark room. Where are we? She asked. Naruto pointed behind her and said, see yourself. She turned her back and saw Theia, who was looking at her with a shocked expression. Annabeth, Theia said. Annabeth nodded. She tried to hug Theia, but she passed through her. You can't hug her, Annabeth. We are just projection, Naruto said. Theia, Annabeth said. Her eyes were streaming with tears. You have grown up, Annabeth, Theia said with a small smile. She looked at Naruto. Thanks. No problem, anything for you, Naruto said. 3 minutes later with Percy. Percy saw Annabeth and Naruto were sitting front of him from last 3 minutes. What are they doing? He thought. Then he saw they were waking up. Annabeth opened her teary eyes and hugged Naruto. Thank you, she said. You are welcome, Naruto said. Percy looked confused. Hey. What happened? He asked. Annabeth released Naruto from her hug. She wiped her tears away and looked toward Percy. I meet Theia. How? Percy said. All time you two were here, in front of me. Percy, there are many ways you can contact another person without moving from the spot, Naruto said. Percy wanted to ask what happened, but Annabeth seemed lost in memories. So he listened to the sound of Grover snoring and gazed out the train windows as the dark fields of Ohio raced by. Toward the end of the second day on the train, June 13, 8 days before the summer solstice, they passed through some golden hills and over the Mississippi River into St. Louis. Annabeth craned her neck to see the gateway arch, which looked to Percy like a huge shopping bag handle stuck in the city. "I want to do that," Annabeth sighed. "What?" Percy asked. "Build something like that. You ever see the Parthenon, Percy?" "No, only in pictures," Percy said. Naruto said, "Yes." "Really? When?" Percy asked Naruto. "Last year," Naruto answered. "Someday, I'm going to see it in person. I'm going to build the greatest monument to the gods, ever. Something that'll last 1,000 years," Annabeth said. Percy laughed. "You? An architect?" "Percy, never laugh at anyone's dream. People who don't have dreams don't have much," Naruto said. Percy felt ashamed. Annabeth smiled at Naruto. "Thank you," she said. "Athena expects her children to create things, not just tear them down, like a certain god of earthquakes I could mention." "And we work together a little?" Percy pleaded. "I mean, didn't Athena and Poseidon ever cooperate?" "I guess the chariot," Annabeth said tentatively. "My mom invented it, but Poseidon created horses out of the crests of waves. So they had to work together to make it complete. Then we can cooperate, too. Right?" Percy asked as they entered the city and the arch disappeared behind a hotel. "I suppose," Annabeth said at last. "Good to know, you two can work together," Naruto said. They pulled into the Amtrak station downtown. The intercom told them they had a 3-hour layover before departing for Denver. Grover stretched. Before he was even fully awake, he said, "Food." "Come on, the goat boy," Annabeth said. "Sightseeing." "Sightseeing?" "The gateway arch," she said. "This may be my only chance to ride to the top. Are you coming or not?" Grover and Percy exchanged looks. Percy wanted to say no. "Okay, Annabeth," Naruto said, "and don't worry about money. I will pay the bill." Grover shrugged. "As long as there's a snack bar without monsters," he said. The arch was about a mile from the train station. Late in the day the lines to get in weren't that long. They threaded way through the underground museum, looking at covered wagons and other junk from the 18s. Annabeth kept telling them interesting facts about how the arch was built, but only Naruto was listening to her. Percy kept looking around, though, at the other people in line. "You smell anything?" he murmured to Grover. Grover took his nose out of the jelly bean bag long enough to sniff. "Underground," he said distasteful. "Underground air always smells like monsters. Probably doesn't mean anything." Percy felt something wrong. "Guys," he said. "You know the god symbols of power?" Annabeth and Naruto had been in the middle of reading about the construction equipment used to build the arch, but she looked over. "Yeah?" Annabeth said. Percy said, "Well, hate." Grover cleared his throat. "We're in a public place, you mean, our friend downstairs?" Right," Percy said. "Our friend way downstairs. Doesn't he have a hat like Annabeth's?" "You mean the Helm of Darkness," Naruto said. "That's his symbol of power. I saw it next to his seat during the Winter Solstice Council meeting," Annabeth said. "He was there?" Percy asked. Annabeth nodded. "It's the only time he's allowed to visit Olympus the darkest day of the year. But his helm is a lot more powerful than my invisibility hat, if what I've heard is true." "It allows him to become darkness," Grover confirmed. "He can melt into shadow or pass through walls. He can't be touched or seen or heard. And he can radiate fear so intense it can drive you insane or stop your heart. Why do you think all rational creatures fear the dark?" "But then how do we know he's not here right now, watching us?" Percy asked. Annabeth and Grover exchanged looks. "We don't," Grover said. "Don't worry about it. My father is not here," Naruto said. "I can sense him in darkness because darkness is also one of my domains." To prove his point, a shadow rose from the ground and wrapped around his right arm like snake. "Thanks, that makes me feel a lot better," Percy said. It seemed Percy was calm until they had to get into a small car that would send them up the arch. "I hate confined places. They make me nuts," Percy thought. They got shoehorned into the car with this big fat lady and her dog, a chihuahua with a rhinestone collar. They figured maybe the dog was a seeing eye chihuahua because none of the guards said a word about it. They started going up inside the arch. Percy had never been in an elevator that went into a curve and his stomach wasn't too happy about it. "No parents?" the fat lady asked them. She had beady eyes, pointy coffee-stained teeth, a floppy denim hat and a denim dress that bulged so much she looked like a blue jean blimp. "They're below," Annabeth told her. "Scared of heights." "Oh, the poor darlings." The chihuahua growled. The woman said, Now, Sonny. Behave." The dog had beady eyes like its owner, intelligent and vicious. Percy said, "Sonny. Is that his name?" "No," the lady told him. She smiled, as if that cleared everything up. They are not normal, Naruto thought. At the top of the arch, the observation deck reminded them of a tin can with carpeting. Rows of tiny windows looked out over the city on one side and the river on the other. The view was okay, but it was making Percy sick a bit. High places and closed spaces didn't mix well for him. Annabeth kept talking about structural supports and how she would have made the windows bigger and designed a see-through floor. She probably could have stayed up there for hours, but the park ranger announced that the observation deck would be closing in a few minutes. They steered toward the exit, loaded them into the elevator, and Percy was about to get in myself when he realized there were already 2 other tourists inside. No room for him. The park ranger said, "Next car, sir." "We'll get out," Annabeth said. "We'll wait with you." Naruto saw people left on the observation deck was Percy, a little boy with his parents, the park ranger, and the fat lady with her chihuahua. Percy said, "No, it's okay." "Percy, we will wait for you," Naruto said in serious voice. They came out from the elevator and gave their place to the little boy and his parents. Elevator door slides shut and the car disappeared down the ramp. Now the only people left on the observation deck were Percy, Naruto, Annabeth, Grover, the park ranger, and the fat lady with her chihuahua. "Why did you do that, Naruto?" Percy asked. "You will know very soon," Naruto said. "All of you keep your guard up." He quickly put Jinjutsu on the park ranger. Before they could ask anything, the fat lady's chihuahua jumped down and started yapping at them. "Not now, Sonny," the lady said. The chihuahua bared his teeth at them, foam dripping from his black lips. "Well, son," the fat lady sighed. "If you insist." Did you just call the chihuahua your son?" Percy asked, getting a nod from the fat woman. "Chimera, dear," the fat lady corrected. "Not a chihuahua. It's an easy mistake to make." "See, Chimera and she called him her son," Grover said. "It means she is." "Echidna," Annabeth said. The fat woman rolled up her denim sleeves, revealing that the skin of her arms was scaly and green. When she smiled, they saw that her teeth were fangs. The pupils of her eyes were sideways slits, like a reptile's. The chihuahua barked louder, and with each bark, it grew. First to the size of a Doberman, then to a lion. The bark became a roar. It was now so tall it back rubbed against the roof. It had the head of a lion with a blood-caked mane, the body and hooves of a giant goat, and a serpent for a tail, a 10-foot-long diamondback growing right out of its shaggy behind. The rhinestone dog collar still hung around its neck, and the plate-sized dog tag was now easy to read. Chimera rabid, fire-breathing, poisonous if found, please call Tartarus Ext. 954. The snake lady made a hissing noise that might have been laughter. "Be honored, Percy Jackson and Naruto Uchiha. Lord Zeus rarely allows me to test a hero with one of my brood. For I am the mother of monsters, the terrible Echidna." Percy stared at her. All he could think to say was, "Isn't that a kind of anteater?" Idiot, Naruto and Annabeth thought. Echidna howled, her reptilian face turning brown and green with rage. "I hate it when people say that. I hate Australia. Naming that ridiculous animal after me. For that, my son shall destroy all of you." The chimera charged, its lion teeth gnashing at Percy, but Naruto appeared front him. Pton. Shinkyoku, wind release. Vacuum sphere, he took a deep breath and then exhaled several small blasts of wind chakra toward Chimera and Echidna. That sent them away. "Annabeth and Grover, take care the ranger," Naruto said. Annabeth and Grover nodded. He looked at the fallen form of Chimera with his EMS, Eternal Magicum Sharingan. Then suddenly Echidna appeared there and looked like she was pissed. "You." She pointed toward Naruto. "I am going to kill you slowly, painfully." "I don't think so," Naruto said. Suddenly Echidna leaped aside to avoid being hit by a column of flame. She saw where she had been standing a moment before was a ragged hole in the side of the arch, with melted metal steaming around the edges. She looked at the attacker and it was her son, Chimera. "Son, what are you doing?" she shouted. Chimera moved between Naruto and her. He bared his teeth at her. What?" Echidna said. She looked at her son's eyes, which were now red with rounded pupils. "What did you do with my son?" she demanded. "Nothing," Naruto said. He put his hand on Chimera. "He is my new pet from now." Before Echidna could say, Chimera opened its mouth and shot a column of flame straight at her, but she was able to dodge it. Percy uncapped his sword, riptide, and tried to attack on Echidna from behind. Before he could swing his sword, she saw him and caught his hand. She threw him out of the hole in the arch, down toward the Mississippi River. "Percy!" Annabeth and Grover shouted. "He would fine. He is the son of Poseidon," Naruto said. "Grover, go after him." Grover nodded and using magic shoes he went after Percy. "Attack!" He ordered Chimera as its mouth glowed red, heating up for another blast. "Son," Echidna shouted, and the Chimera sent a column of flame toward her face. She dodged it again, but Chimera appeared front her and tried to attack her using his claws. "Let me remind you that I am your mother," Echidna shouted angrily. She wrapped her arms around him and tossed him far away from her. Then she turned toward Naruto. "You are going to pay for that, son of death." Really? Naruto said as his right hand glove turned gauntlet. It was black and red gauntlet that had a small chain linking it and had a stinger-like blade on his middle finger. Sting all enemies to death, Hornet. With a burst of speed he disappeared. Few minutes earlier with Percy. Percy saw the river race toward him at the speed of a truck. He felt the wind rip the breath from his lungs. Steeples and skyscrapers and bridges tumbled in and out of his vision. Blah boom. The wide out of bubbles and he sank through the murk. Percy thought he was about to end up embedded in 100 feet of mud and lost forever. But his impact with the water hadn't hurt. He was falling slowly, bubbles trickling up through his fingers. He settled on the river bottom soundlessly. He found clouds of silt and disgusting garbage, beer bottles, old shoes, plastic bags swirled up all around him. At that point, he realized a few things. First, he had not been flattened into a pancake. He had not been barbecued. He was alive, which was good. Second realization. He wasn't wet and he could feel the coolness of the water. He touched his own shirt, it felt perfectly dry. How? He thought. But the strangest thought occurred to him. He was breathing. He was underwater and he was breathing normally. I should have been dead, Percy thought. It's a miracle. He heard a woman's voice, a voice that sounded a bit like his mother. Percy, what do you say? Thanks, Percy said. Thank you, father. He got no response. Why had Poseidon saved me? Percy thought. He heard a woman's voice again. Percy, your father believes in you. This time, he knew the voice wasn't in his head. He wasn't imagining it. Her words seemed to come from everywhere, rippling through the water like dolphin sonar. Where are you? Percy called aloud. Then, through the gloom, he saw her, a woman the color of the water, a ghost in the current, floating just above his sword. She had long billowing hair, and her eyes, barely visible, were green like him. Mom? No, child, only a messenger, though your mother's fate is not as hopeless as you believe. Go to the beach in Santa Monica. What? It is your father's will. Before you descend into the underworld, you must go to Santa Monica. Please, Percy, I cannot stay long. The river here is too foul for my presence. But Percy said, how did you? I cannot stay, brave one, the woman said. She reached out and Percy felt the current brush his face like a caress. You must go to Santa Monica. And Percy, do not trust the gifts. Her voice faded. Gifts? Percy asked. What gifts? Wait. She made one more attempt to speak, but the sound was gone. Her image melted away. Suddenly he heard Grover shout, Percy, Percy. Percy clapped his sword, stuck the ballpoint pen in his pocket. Thank you, father, he said again to the dark water. Then he kicked up through the muck and swam for the surface. He came near to Grover, who was floating using shoes. Grover saw him. Thank God, Percy. You are safe, he said. Let's go. He took Percy's hand and they flew toward Arch. An arch. Percy and Grover both reached an arch. They heard a familiar voice, Percy, I thought you'd gone to Hades the hard way. It was Annabeth. Are you alright? She asked. I'm fine, Percy said. We can't even leave you alone for 5 minutes. Whatever. Percy said. What happened here? He looked at Naruto, who was unharmed, and Echidna. She was bleeding heavily and had some kind swirl-shaped stamp on all over her body. Echidna said, why you will die, boy. I will see. However, she didn't have time to say before Naruto disappeared and reappeared from behind her. Another few cuts, swirl appeared on her body. She had mouthed a cry of pain before she dropped to her knees holding her mouth and throat. The black blood just dripped and drooled all over the floor. Suddenly Naruto appeared front of her and stared at her with his cold eyes. This is the end, he said. Echidna looked at him with fear as he stabbed his stinger on one of the swirl. No! She shouted. A larger swirl quickly spread out from her wound and destroyed her body completely. Only remained was golden dust. Naruto looked at golden dust and saw something in there. He picked it up and looked closely. It was a small white crystal ball, which was held by a golden chain. Interesting, he thought. He saw Annabeth, Percy and Grover were coming toward him. What is that, Naruto? Percy asked when he saw a crystal in his hand. The prize, Naruto said. What it can do? Grover asked. Naruto noticed bruises on Annabeth's arm. What happened to your arm, Annabeth? He asked. Small accident, Annabeth said. Naruto took his crystal and put it on Annabeth's arm. Suddenly it had started to shine in green color and her injuries were disappeared completely in few seconds. Wow, it can heal people, Grover said. Interesting, it will really helpful, Naruto said, but sadly. It is useless to me. He gave it to Annabeth. Take it. She surprised at this. What? She said. I can't take it, Naruto. It is your prize. It is useless to me, Annabeth. I'm a good healer. Thanks. Annabeth took the crystal and put it in her pocket. No problem. Grover pointed toward Chimera and asked, but what about him? The others looked at Chimera, who was coming toward them. Don't worry about him, Naruto said. He is my new pet." He turned toward Chimera and said, "Sit boy." Just like a loyal dog, he did obey his command. Others were shocked at this. "How did you do that?" Percy asked. "Like my grandfather's eyes, my eyes can control any demon or monster," Naruto said. "So what are you going to do with him?" Annabeth asked. Naruto smirked and started to make hand sign. He slammed his hand on the floor. With that, seal appeared around Chimera and he disappeared with a puff of smoke. Grover asked, "Where did he go?" "Somewhere in a safe place," Naruto said. "Now let's go, before anyone comes here." "What about the ranger, who saw everything?" Annabeth asked. "He will not remember anything. To him it was a small terrorist attack," Naruto said. "Now, take my hand." They put their hands on his hand. At blank of eyes they appeared next to a floating McDonald. "That was so fast," Percy said. A block away, they saw every emergency vehicle in St. Louis was surrounding the arch and police helicopters were circling overhead. The news lady was talking for the camera. "Probably it was a terrorist attack, we're told, but it's still very early in the investigation. The damage, as you can see, is very serious." "Let's go," Naruto said. "Thanks to me, there is no one eyewitness or proofs of this incident." "What's next?" Annabeth asked. "We have to go Santa Monica," Percy said. Grover asked, "Why?" Percy told them the story of his high dive act and the underwater lady's message. "Whoa," said Grover. "We've got to get you to Santa Monica. You can't ignore a summons from your dad." Both Annabeth and Naruto nodded. "First things," Naruto said, "we've got to get out of town." They made it back to the Amtrak station. They got on board the train just before it pulled out for Denver. The train trundled west as darkness fell, police lights still pulsing against the St. Louis skyline behind them. Chapter 15. Percy's Side Quest. The next afternoon, June 14, 7 days before the solstice, their train rolled into Denver. They hadn't eaten since the night before in the dining car, somewhere in Kansas. They hadn't taken a shower since Half-Blood Hill, making them pretty noticeable to the other passengers. As for Naruto, he looked neat and clean. They didn't know how. "Let's try to contact Chiron," Annabeth said. "I want to tell him about your talk with the river spirit." "We can't use phones, right?" Percy said. "I'm not talking about phones." They wandered through downtown for about half an hour, though Percy wasn't sure what Annabeth was looking for, but Naruto had some clue. The air was dry and hot, which felt weird after the humidity of St. Louis. Finally they found an empty do-it-yourself car wash. They veered toward the stall farthest from the street, keeping our eyes open for patrol cars. They were 4 adolescents hanging out at a car wash without a car. Any cop worth his donuts would figure they were up to no good. "What exactly are we doing?" Percy asked. Grover took out the spray gun. "It's 75 cents, he grumbled. "I've only got 2 quarters left." Annabeth. "Don't look at me," Annabeth said. Naruto flipped a quarter to him. "Take this." "Excellent," Grover said. "We could do it with a spray bottle, of course, but the connection isn't as good and my arm gets tired of pumping." Percy asked, "What are you talking about?" He fed in the quarters and set the knob to fine mist. "Iming. Instant messaging." "Iris messaging," Naruto corrected. "Yes," Annabeth said, "the rainbow goddess Iris carries messages from the gods. If you know how to ask, and she's not too busy, she'll do the same for half-bloods." "You summon the goddess with a spray gun." Grover pointed the nozzle in the air and water hissed out in a thick white mist. "Unless you know an easier way to make a rainbow." Everyone looked at Naruto. "What?" Naruto asked them. "Can you make a rainbow?" Grover asked. "You think I can do anything?" Naruto said. "Sorry, Yes, I can make a rainbow," Naruto said. Everybody face faulted at that answer. He used water manipulation to make small rainbow. Annabeth raised the drachma over her head. "Oh goddess, accept our offering." She threw the drachma into the rainbow. It disappeared in a golden shimmer. "Half-Blood Hill," Annabeth requested. For a moment, nothing happened. Then they saw through the mist at strawberry fields and the Long Island Sound in the distance. The image seemed to be set on the porch of the big house. Standing with his back to us on the railing was a sandy-haired guy in shorts and an orange tank top. He was holding a bronze sword and seemed to be staring intently at something down in the meadow. "Luke," Percy called. He turned eyes wide. Percy could swear he was standing 3 feet in front of him through a screen of mist, except he could only see the part of him that appeared in the rainbow. "Percy?" His scarred face broke into a grin. "Is that Annabeth, Naruto and Grover too? Thank the gods. Are you guys okay?" "We're all fine," Annabeth stammered. She was madly straightening her dirty t-shirt, trying to comb the loose hair out of her face. "We thought Chiron. He's down at the cabins." Luke's smile faded. "We're having some issues with the campers. Listen, is everything cool with you?" "Yes," Grover said. "What kind of issues?" Just then a big Lincoln Continental pulled into the car wash with its stereo turned to maximum hip-hop. As the car slid into the next stall, the bass from the subwoofers vibrated so much, it shook the pavement. Tyron had to. What's that noise? Luke yelled. I'll take care of it, Naruto said. I'm coming with you, Annabeth said, looking very relieved to have an excuse to get out of sight. They made their way toward the car. Tyron had to break up a fight, Luke shouted to Percy over the music. Things are pretty tense here, Percy. Word leaked out about the Zeus Poseidon Hades standoff. We're still not sure how, probably the same scumbag who summoned the Hellhound. Now the campers are starting to take sides. It's shaping up like the Trojan War all over again. Aphrodite, Ares, and Apollo are backing Poseidon and Hades, more or less. Athena is backing Zeus. This is bad, Grover said. I know, Luke said. I never thought Clarissa's cabin would ever be on my dad's side for anything, Percy thought. In the next stall, they heard the boom sound and music sound suddenly stopped. Then after a few minutes later they heard Girly scream. Percy, what happened? Luke asked. I don't know, Percy said. So what's your status? Luke asked. Chiron will be sorry he missed you. They told him pretty much everything, including Percy's dreams. Percy felt so good to see him, to feel like he was back at camp even for a few minutes, that they didn't realize how long they had talked. I wish I could be there, Luke said. We can't help much from here, I'm afraid, but listen, it had to be Hades who took the Master Bolt. He was there at Olympus at the winter solstice. I was chaperoning a field trip and we saw him. I don't think, Luck, Naruto said, who appeared there with Annabeth. Gods can't take each other's magic item directly. I'm sorry, Naruto, but that's true, Luke said, looking troubled. Still, Hades has the Helm of Darkness. How could anybody else sneak into the throne room and steal the Master Bolt? You'd have to be invisible. They were silent until Luke seemed to realize what he'd said. He looked at Annabeth. Oh, Annabeth, he protested. I didn't mean it was you. You and I have known each other forever. I know you sorry. It's okay, Annabeth said. She was a little down. Well, take care of yourself out there in Denver, Luke said. Goodbye. The mist was gone and Luke's image faded to nothing. Percy turned to Naruto and Annabeth. What happened between you two and car driver? We heard a boom sound, he asked. Annabeth said, well. Flashback starts. Few minutes earlier. Naruto and Annabeth saw the owner of the car was a young guy who looked to be in his early 20s. Excuse me, Annabeth said. Could you turn it down a little? Your kind music is a bit loud. At lost, you girl, driver said arrogantly. You don't have any manners, Naruto said, and don't talk Annabeth like that. At lost, you kid, and take your girlfriend with you, driver said. First, she is not my girlfriend. She is like a little sister to me, Naruto said, and I will ask again, turn the music down. The driver just growled a little. No, he said. Very well, Naruto said. He did punch the car bonnet with such force, the car flipped over them and crashed upside down. If you talk to me like that again. Next time it wasn't your car, it would be you, Naruto said in a cold tone. The driver looked at Naruto with wide eyes. Then he screamed like a girl and ran away from there. Idiot, Naruto said. Annabeth started to laugh loudly. Haha, that was rich. She said. Thank Naruto, and I never thought you saw me as your little sister. I always wanted a little sister, Naruto said. Suddenly Annabeth gave him a hug. It would be my pleasure if I get brother like you. Naruto gave her a return hug. Annabeth asked, you don't think after this incident we will get unwanted attention? First, no one saw us, and you really think anyone would believe him that 13-year-old boy destroyed his car with one punch, Naruto said. No. Now, you saw my point. Let's go, Anna, Naruto said and gave her his rare smile. Annabeth also smiled at her name. Both of them disappeared in swirling of the vortex. Flashback ends. Well, nothing special, Annabeth said. So what did Luke say before? Grover and Percy told them everything. It is bad, Annabeth said. Someone leaked out about the Zeus, Poseidon and Hades standoff, Naruto thought. Suddenly Percy's stomach growled loudly. He blushed with embarrassment. Come on, let's find some dinner and don't worry about money, Naruto said. A few minutes later. Take this money. Naruto gave some money to Annabeth. Go ahead, I'll meet you later, he said. Annabeth asked, where are you going? Some personal work, Naruto said. Okay, Annabeth said. Naruto walked toward the dark alley. He stopped and saw no one was there. You can come out now, he said. Suddenly from nowhere a wolf appeared front of him. It was a white wolf with crimson markings across its body. As I thought, you can sense me, Wolf said in a feminine voice. Who are you? Let's talk somewhere. Naruto nodded and both of them disappeared. They appeared on the top of the hill. Now tell me, who are you? Naruto asked. He turned around, looked up, saw the rising sun in the sky. In bright flash of light, the wolf turned into a woman. She had long black hair and purple eyes like him. She would be considered a very beautiful woman. She had warmth aura that was radiating life force and hope. "I am Amaterasu, the goddess of the sun, but also of the universe," Amaterasu said. "Why you are my," Naruto said. "Grandmother." Amaterasu came closer to Naruto and put her hand on his head. "I'm here to talk with you." Suddenly Naruto started to shine and flame like black aura. With that, crimson markings appeared on his shoulders. "What is that?" Naruto asked. "My gift," Amaterasu said. "They are divine markings. They are all over your body." "Now what?" Naruto asked. Amaterasu smiled at her grandson. "Let's talk about your life and powers." With others. Annabeth, Percy and Grover were sitting at a booth in a gleaming chrome diner. All around them, families were eating burgers and drinking malts and sodas. Finally the waitress came over. She raised her eyebrow skeptically. "Well?" Percy said, "We, want to order dinner. You kids have money to pay for it." Before they could say anything, rumbles shook the whole building. A motorcycle the size of a baby elephant had pulled up to the curb. All conversation in the diner stopped. The motorcycle's headlight glared red. Its gas tank had flames painted on it and a shotgun holster riveted to either side, complete with shotguns. The seat was leather, but leather that looked like, well, Caucasian human skin. The guy on the bike would have made pro wrestlers run for mama. He was dressed in a red muscle shirt and black jeans and a black leather duster with a hunting knife strapped to his thigh. He wore red wraparound shades and he had the cruelest, a most brutal face they had ever seen, handsome but wicked, with an oily black crew cut and cheeks that were scarred from many fights. The weird thing was, Percy felt like he had seen his face somewhere before. As he walked into the diner, a hot dry wind blew through the place. All the people rose, as if they were hypnotized, but the biker waved his hand dismissively and they all sat down again. Everybody went back to their conversations. The waitress blinked, as if somebody had just pressed the rewind button on her brain. She asked us again, "You kids have money to pay for it?" The biker said, "It's on me." He slid into their booth, which was way too small for him, and crowded Annabeth against the window. He looked up at the waitress, who was gaping at him, and said, "Are you still here?" He pointed at her, and she stiffened. She turned as if she'd been spun around and then marched back toward the kitchen. The biker looked at Percy. Percy couldn't see his eyes behind the red shades, but he had bad feelings. Anger, resentment, bitterness. He wanted to hit a wall. He wanted to pick a fight with somebody. He gave Percy a wicked grin. "So you're old Seaweed's kid, huh?" Percy should have been surprised or scared, but instead he felt like he was looking at his stepdad Gabe. He wanted to rip this guy's head off. "What's it to you?" Annabeth's eyes flashed him a warning. "Percy, this is..." The biker raised his hand. "Sake," he said. "I don't mind a little attitude. Long as you remember who's the boss. You know who I am, little cousin." Then it struck Percy why this guy looked familiar. He had the same vicious sneer as some of the kids at Camp Half-Blood, the ones from Cabin 5. "You're Clarissa's dad," he said. "Ares, god of war." Ares grinned and took off his shades. Where his eyes should have been, there were only fire, empty sockets glowing with miniature nuclear explosions. "That's right, punk. I heard you broke Clarissa's spear. She was asking for it." "Probably. That's cool. I don't fight my kids' fights, you know. What I'm here for, I heard you and Corpse Breast Kid were in town. Where is he?" "Corpse Breast Kid?" Percy asked. Grover said, "He means Naruto." "Well anyway, I got a little proposition for you," Ares said to Percy. The waitress came back with heaping trays of food: cheeseburgers, fries, onion rings, and chocolate shakes. Ares handed her a few gold drachmas. She looked nervously at the coins. "But, these aren't..." Ares pulled out his huge knife and started cleaning his fingernails. "Problem, sweetheart." The waitress swallowed, then left with the gold. "You can't do that," Percy said to Ares. "You can't just threaten people with a knife." Ares laughed. "Are you kidding? I love this country. Don't you carry a weapon, punk? You should. Dangerous world out there. This brings me to my proposition. I need you to do me a favor." "What favor could I do for a god?" "Something a god doesn't have time to do himself. It's nothing much. I left my shield at an abandoned water park here in town. I was going on a little date with my girlfriend. We were interrupted. I left my shield behind. I want you to fetch it for me. Why don't you go back and get it yourself?" The fire in his eye sockets glowed a little hotter. "Why don't I turn you into a prairie dog and run you over with my Harley?" "Because I don't feel like it. A god is giving you an opportunity to prove yourself, Percy Jackson. Will you prove yourself a coward?" He leaned forward. "Or maybe you only fight when there's a river to dive into so your daddy can protect you." Percy wanted to punch the sky, but somehow he knew he was waiting for that. Ares's power was causing his anger. He'd love it if he attacked. He didn't want to give him the satisfaction. "We're not interested," Percy said. "We've already got a quest." Ares' fiery eyes made him see things he didn't want to see: blood and smoke and corpses on the battlefield. I know all about your quest, punk. When that item was first stolen, Zeus sent his best out looking for it. Apollo, Athena, Artemis, and me, naturally. If I couldn't sniff out a weapon that powerful, he licked his lips, as if the very thought of the master bolt made him hungry. Well. If I couldn't find it, you got no hope. Nevertheless, I'm trying to give you the benefit of the doubt. Your dad and I go way back. After all, I'm the one who told him my suspicions about old corpse breath. You told him Hades stole the bolt. Sure. Framing somebody to start a war. Oldest trick in the book. I recognized it immediately. In a way, you got me to thank for your little quest. Thanks, Percy grumbled. Suddenly a familiar voice said, so do you think he actually stole it? They looked at voice direction and saw Naruto. He was calmly standing there with a hood on his jacket over his head. You must be corpse breath's kid, Ares said. I doubted he stole a bolt. He has been bitching about too many dead people lately. Whatever, I don't care, Naruto said and started to walk away from there. Where are you going? Don't you want to hear about your other quest? Ares said. No. Technically you asked them first, so it is their quest, not mine. Naruto walked away from there. Smart kid, I like him, Ares said. He turned to Percy. Just do my little job and I'll help you on your way. I'll arrange a ride west for you and your friends. We're doing fine on our own, Percy said. Yeah, right. No clue what you're up against. Help me out and maybe I'll tell you something you need to know. Something about your mom. My mom? Ares grinned. That got your attention. The water park is a mile west on Delancey. You can't miss it. Look for the Tunnel of Love ride. What interrupted your date? Percy asked. Something scare you off? Ares bared his teeth, but Percy had seen his threatening look before on Claris. There was something false about it, almost like he was nervous. You're lucky you met me, punk, and not one of the other Olympians. They're not as forgiving of rudeness as I am. I'll meet you back here when you're done. Don't disappoint me. After he said that, Percy blinked and he was gone. He might have thought the conversation had been a dream, but Annabeth and Grover's expressions told him otherwise. Not good, Grover said. Ares sought you out, Percy. This is not good. Percy stared out the window. The motorcycle had disappeared. Did Ares really know something about my mom, or was he just playing with me? He thought. That man liked to mess with people's emotions so bad they break. It's probably some kind of trick, he said. Forget Ares. Let's just go. We can't, Annabeth said. Look, I hate Ares as much as anybody, but you don't ignore the gods unless you want serious bad fortune. He wasn't kidding about turning you into a rodent. Interesting, Naruto said as he walked over there. He was eating steaming hot noodles. Only for you, Naruto, Percy said. He looked down at his cheeseburger, which suddenly didn't seem so appetizing. Why does he need us? Maybe it's a problem that requires brains, Annabeth said. Ares have strength. That's all he has. Even strength has to bow to wisdom sometimes. At this water park he acted almost scared. What would make a war god run away like that? Annabeth and Grover glanced nervously at each other. Don't worry, very soon you will find out, Naruto said. The sun was sinking behind the mountains by the time they found the water park. Judging from the sign, it once had been called Waterland, but now some of the letters were smashed out, so it reads Watrad. The main gate was padlocked and topped with barbed wire. Inside, huge dry water slides and tubes and pipes curled everywhere, leading to empty pools. Old tickets and advertisements fluttered around the asphalt. With night coming on, the place looked sad and creepy. If Ares brings his girlfriend here for a date, Percy said, staring up at the barbed wire, I'd hate to see what she looks like. Percy, Annabeth warned. Be more respectful. Why? I thought you hated Ares. He's still a god. And his girlfriend is very temperamental. You don't want to insult her looks, Grover added. Who is she? Echidna. I think you forgot I killed her in Arch, Naruto said. Yes, Percy said. She is Aphrodite, Grover said, a little dreamily. Goddess of love. I thought she was married to somebody, Percy said. Hephaestus. What's your point? Grover asked. Oh. Percy suddenly felt the need to change the subject. So how do we get in? Maya. Grover's shoes sprouted wings. He flew over the fence, did an unintended somersault in midair, and then stumbled to a landing on the opposite side. He dusted off his jeans, as if he'd planned the whole thing. You guys coming? Naruto put his hand on Percy and Annabeth's shoulders and said, let me help you. They disappeared and reappeared in the front of Grover. The shadows grew long as they walked through the park, checking out the attractions. Luckily for them, there were no monsters in sight, so they were safe. Nothing made the slightest noise. They found a souvenir shop that had been left open. Merchandise still lined the shelves. Snow globes, pencils, postcards, and racks of clothes, Annabeth said. Fresh clothes. Yeah, Percy said. But you can't just. Watch me. Annabeth snatched an entire row of stuff of the racks and disappeared into the changing room. A few minutes later she came out in Waterland flower print shorts, a big red Waterland t-shirt, and commemorative Waterland surf shoes. A Waterland backpack was slung over her shoulder, obviously stuffed with more goodies. What the heck? Grover shrugged. Soon, all three Annabeth, Percy and Grover were decked out like walking advertisements for the defunct theme park. Naruto, try this, Annabeth said. But they saw Naruto wasn't with them. Where is he? She said. He disappeared, again Grover said. Let's go. Naruto can handle himself, Percy said. They continued searching for the tunnel of love. Percy got the feeling that the whole park was holding its breath. So Ares and Aphrodite, he said, to keep his mind off the growing dark, they have a thing going. That's old gossip, Percy, Annabeth said. 3,000-year-old gossip. What about Aphrodite's husband? Well, you know, she said. Hephaestus. The blacksmith. He was crippled when he was a baby, thrown off Mount Olympus by Zeus. So he isn't exactly handsome. Clever with his hands and all, but Aphrodite isn't into brains and talent, you know. She likes bikers. Whatever. Hephaestus knows. Oh sure, Annabeth said. He caught them together once. I mean, literally caught them in a golden net and invited all the gods to come and laugh at them. Hephaestus is always trying to embarrass them. That's why they meet in out-of-the-way places, like she stopped, looking straight ahead. Like that. In front of them was an empty pool. It was at least 50 yards across and shaped like a bowl. Around the rim, a dozen bronze statues of Cupid stood guard with wings spread and bows ready to fire. On the opposite side of them, a tunnel opened up, probably where the water flowed into when the pool was full. The sign above it read, "Thrill Ride O Love. This is not your parents' tunnel of love." Grover crept toward the edge. Guys, look. Marooned at the bottom of the pool was a pink and white two-seater boat with a canopy over the top and little hearts painted all over it. In the left seat, glinting in the fading light was Ares' shield, a polished circle of bronze. This is too easy, Percy said. So we just walk down there and get it. Annabeth ran her fingers along the base of the nearest Cupid statue. There's a Greek letter carved here, she said. Ada. I wonder. Grover, Percy said, you smell any monsters? Grover sniffed the wind. Nothing. Nothing like in the arch, and you didn't smell Echidna, nothing, or really nothing. Grover looked hurt. I told you that we were underground. Okay, I'm sorry. Percy took a deep breath. I'm going down there. I'll go with you, Grover said, but he didn't sound too enthusiastic. No, Percy said. I want you to stay up top with the flying shoes. You're the Red Baron, a flying ace, remember? I'll be counting on you for backup in case something goes wrong. Grover puffed up his chest a little. Sure. But what could go wrong? I don't know. Just a feeling. Annabeth, come with me. Are you kidding? Annabeth looked at Percy as if he had just dropped from the moon. Her cheeks were bright red. What's the problem now? Percy demanded. Me, go with you to the thrill ride of love. How embarrassing is that? What if somebody saw me? Who's going to see you? Percy said. His face was red. Leave it to a girl to make everything complicated, he thought. Fine, Percy said. I'll do it myself. He started down the side of the pool. Annabeth followed him, muttering about how boys always mess things up. They reached the boat. The shield was propped on one seat and next to it was a lady's silk scarf. He picked up the scarf. It shimmered pink and the perfume was indescribable rose or mountain laurel. Something good. He smiled, a little dreamy, and was about to rub the scarf against his cheek when Annabeth ripped it out of his hand and stuffed it in her pocket. Oh, no, you don't. Stay away from that love magic. What? Just get the shield, seaweed brain, and let's get out of here. Percy scowled and reached for the shield, only to pale as his other hand hit a tripwire. Wait, Annabeth said. Too late. There's another Greek letter on the side of the boat, another Ada. This is a trap. Noise erupted all around them, of a million gears grinding, as if the whole pool were turning into one giant machine. Grover yelled, guys. Up on the rim, the Cupid statues were drawing their bows into firing position. Before Percy could suggest taking cover, they fired at each other, across the rim of the pool. Silky cables trailed from the arrows, arsing over the pool and anchoring where they landed to form a huge golden asterisk. Then smaller metallic threads started weaving together magically between the main strands, making a net. We have to get out, Percy said. Duh. Annabeth said. Percy grabbed a shield and they ran, but going up the slope of the pool was not as easy as going down. Come on. Grover shouted. He was trying to hold open a section of the net for them, but wherever he touched it, the golden thread started to wrap around his hands. The Cupids' heads popped open. Out came video cameras. Spotlights rose up all around the pool, blinding us with illumination, and a loudspeaker voice boomed. Live to Olympus in 1 minute 59 seconds, 58. Hephaestus. Annabeth screamed. I'm so stupid. Ada is H. He made this trap to catch his wife with Ares. Now we're going to be broadcast live to Olympus and look like absolute fools. They had almost made it to the rim when the row of mirrors opened like hatches and thousands of tiny metallic things poured out. Annabeth screamed. It was an army of wind-up creepy crawlies. Bronze gear bodies, spindly legs, and little pincer mouths, all scuttling toward them in a wave of clacking, whirring metal. Spiders. Annabeth said. SPSPA. She fell backward in terror and almost got overwhelmed by the spider robots before Percy pulled her up and dragged her back toward the boat. Annabeth and Percy climbed into the boat. Percy started kicking away the spiders as they swarmed aboard. He yelled at Annabeth to help him, but she was too paralyzed to do much more than scream. 3029, called the loudspeaker. The spiders started spitting out strands of metallic thread, trying to tie us down. The strands were easy enough to break at first, but there were so many of them, and the spiders just kept coming. Grover hovered above the pool in his flying sneakers, trying to pull the net loose, but it wouldn't budge. I wish Naruto was here with us now. He really knows what to do, Grover said to himself. Anyone called me here, Naruto said, who suddenly appeared behind Grover. Naruto, you are here, Grover said. He saw Naruto was floating in midair. You can fly too. He pointed toward Percy and Annabeth. Please, help them. Naruto saw Annabeth and Percy behind the golden net, spider and cameras. Hephaestus really did not want Ares and Aphrodite to have a good time, he said. 1514, the loudspeaker called. Percy summoned water from the piping around them to drench and knock away the metallic spiders, but the little buggers were still swarming out. You know, if they aired of the Hephaestus TV, they would no doubt be the laughing stock of the entire Greek world, and no one at camp would ever let them live it down, Naruto said. You have to hurry, Naruto, Grover said. Okay, Naruto said. He summoned a ball of black flame in his left hand and threw it on net. Black flame spread fully on the golden net and destroyed it fully. Wow, Grover said. 9-8, called the loudspeaker. You are now free, Annabeth and Percy, Naruto said. Both demigods saw no golden net was there. Now, jump as high as you can. They nodded. Get ready to catch them, Grover. 3-2-1, speaker said, and cameras started to filming them. When both Percy and Annabeth jumped, Naruto caught Annabeth while Grover caught Percy in midair. Then slowly put them down on the ground. Annabeth gave Naruto a hug. Thanks, Naruto. They saw Cupids were still filming them. The statues had swiveled so that their cameras were trained straight on them, the spotlights in their faces. Show's over. Naruto said. Thank you. Good night. He sent a storm of black flame toward them and destroyed them completely. That trap was really good. He turned back to the other and saw that Percy's eye was twitching. Percy hefted the shield on his arm. We need to have a little talk with Ares. Chapter 16. Race against time. The war god was waiting for them in the diner parking lot. Well, he said. You didn't get yourself killed. You knew it was a trap, Percy said. Ares gave him a wicked grin. Bet that crippled blacksmith was surprised when he netted a couple of stupid kids. Percy shoved his shield at him. You're a jerk. Annabeth and Grover caught their breath. Ares grabbed the shield and spun it in the air like pizza dough. It changed form, melting into a bulletproof vest. He slung it across his back. See that truck over there? Ares pointed to an 18-wheeler parked across the street from the diner. That's your ride. Take you straight to LA, with one stop in Vegas. The 18-wheeler had a sign on the back. Kindness International. Humane Zoo Transport. Warning. Live wild animals. Percy said, you're kidding. Ares snapped his fingers. The back door of the truck unlatched. Free ride west, punk. Stop complaining. And here's a little something for doing the job. He slung a blue nylon backpack off his handlebars and tossed it to Percy. Inside were fresh clothes for all of them, $20 in cash, a pouch full of golden drachmas, and a bag of double stuffed Oreos. Percy said, I don't want your lousy. Thank you, Lord Ares, Grover interrupted, giving Percy his best red alert warning look. Thanks a lot. Percy gritted his teeth. It was probably a deadly insult to refuse something from a god, but he didn't want anything that Ares had touched. He reminded him of every bully he had ever faced. Nancy, Bobafett, Clarice, and Smelly Gabe, sarcastic teachers. Every jerk who'd called him stupid in school or laughed at him when he had gotten expelled. He looked back at the diner, which had only a couple of customers now. The waitress who'd served them dinner was watching nervously out the window, like she was afraid Ares might hurt us. She dragged the fry cook out from the kitchen to see. She said something to him. He nodded, held up a little disposable camera, but before he could snap a picture of them. Hey. What is this? Grover said. They saw black feathers falling from above them. And what happened to them? Percy said. He pointed toward other people. They are, Annabeth said. Sleeping, Naruto said as he walked toward them. For precaution I have erased their memory. Why? Percy asked. Do you want another headline? 12-year-old outlaw beats up defenseless biker. No. See my point, Naruto said, and he stood next to Annabeth. You are a smart kid, Ares said. You owe me one more thing, Percy said to Ares, trying to keep his voice level. You promised me information about my mother. You sure you can handle the news? Ares said and he kick-started his motorcycle. She's not dead. The ground seemed to spin beneath Percy. What do you mean? I mean she was taken away from the Minotaur before she could die. She was turned into a shower of gold, right? That's metamorphosis. Not death. She's being kept. Kept? Why? Hostages, Naruto said. In war you take somebody to control somebody else. He is right, Ares said. Percy said, nobody's controlling me. Ares laughed. Oh yeah? See you around, kid. Percy balled up his fists. You're pretty smug, Lord Ares, for a guy who runs from Cupid's statues. Behind his sunglasses, fire glowed. Percy felt a hot wind in his hair. Ares said, we'll meet again, Percy Jackson. Next time you're in a fight, watch your back. He accelerated his Harley and then roared off down Delancey Street. Annabeth said, that was not smart, Percy. I don't care. You don't want a god as your enemy. Especially not that god. Take my advice, Percy. Anger is just anger. It isn't good. It isn't bad. It just is. What you do with it is what matters. It's like anything else. You can use it to build or to destroy. You just have to make the choice, Naruto said. Hey, guys, Grover said. I hate to interrupt, but… He pointed toward the diner. At the register, the last two customers were paying their check, two men in identical black coveralls with a white logo on their backs that matched the one on the Kindness International truck. If we're taking the Zoo Express, Grover said, we need to hurry. Let's go, Naruto said, and he disappeared with a flock of crows. Others ran across the street and climbed in the back of the big rig, closing the doors behind them. What is that smell? Annabeth asked. Naruto summoned a ball of light. In white light they saw sitting in a row of filthy metal cages were three of the most pathetic zoo animals they had ever beheld. A zebra, a male albino lion, and some weird antelope. Someone had thrown the lion a sack of turnips, which he obviously didn't want to eat. The zebra and the antelope had each gotten a styrofoam tray of hamburger meat. The zebra's mane was matted with chewing gum, like somebody had been spitting on it in their spare time. The antelope had a stupid silver birthday balloon tied to one of his horns that read over the hill. Apparently, nobody had wanted to get close enough to the lion to mess with him, but the poor thing was pacing around on soiled blankets, in a space way too small for him, panting from the stuffy heat of the trailer. He had flies buzzing around his pink eyes, and his ribs showed through his white fur. This is kindness? Grover yelled. Humane zoo transport. No. Judging by the crappy condition, this could be a black market transport, Naruto said. He saw Percy and Grover's faces. Don't do anything stupid, this is our only chance to reach LA in time. We can think something about them later. The truck's engine roared to life, the trailer started shaking, and they were forced to sit down. They huddled in the corner on some mildewed feed sacks, trying to ignore the smell and the heat and the flies. Grover talked to the animals in a series of goat bleats, but they just stared at him sadly. Naruto came closer to animals and did their medical checkup. They are far from fine. Poor nutrition, lack of water and lack of medical care, etc. Can't you do anything for them? Annabeth asked. Give them some food and water, this is the only thing we can do for them now, Naruto said. Percy found a water jug and refilled their bowls, and Naruto dragged the mismatched food out of their cages. He gave the meat to the lion and the turnips to the zebra and the antelope. Grover calmed the antelope down, while Annabeth used her knife to cut the balloon off his horn. She wanted to cut the gum out of the zebra's mane, too, but they decided that would be too risky with the truck bumping around. They told Grover to promise the animals they will help them more in the morning, and then they settled in for the night. Hey, Annabeth said, I'm sorry for freaking out back at the water park, Percy. That's okay. It's just, she shuddered. Spiders. Because of the Arachan story, Percy said. She got turned into a spider for challenging your mom to a weaving contest, right? Annabeth nodded. Arachan's children have been taking revenge on the children of Athena ever since. If there's a spider within a mile of me, it'll find me. I hate the creepy little things. Anyway, I owe you. We're a team, remember? Percy said. Besides, Grover did the fancy flying and Naruto, he did his best. Percy thought Grover was asleep, but he mumbled from the corner, I was pretty amazing, wasn't I? Annabeth and Percy laughed. She pulled apart an Oreo, handed Percy half. Even though Naruto was not near them, he could still hear them with his abilities. He closed his and listened. In their conversation he heard Grover. I was supposed to escort Theia to camp, Grover said, sniffling. Only Theia. I had strict orders from Chiron. Don't do anything that would slow down the rescue. We knew Hades was after her, see, but I couldn't just leave Luke and Annabeth by themselves. I thought I could lead all three of them to safety. It was my fault the kindly ones caught up with us. I froze. I got scared on the way back to camp and took some wrong turns. If I'd just been a little quicker. Stop it, Annabeth said. No one blames you. Theia didn't blame you either. She sacrificed herself to save us, Grover said miserably. Her death was my fault. The Council of Cloven Elders said so. Because you wouldn't leave two other half-bloods behind. Percy said. That's not fair. You can't save everyone, Naruto said. Besides, Theia is not dead. She is in limbo. I have promised to help her. He is right, Annabeth said. I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for you, Grover. Neither would Luke. We don't care what the council says. Grover kept sniffling in the dark. It's just my luck. I'm the lamest satyr ever, and I find the three most powerful half-bloods of the century, Theia, Naruto, and Percy. You're not lame, Annabeth insisted. You've got more courage than any satyr I've ever met. Name one other who would dare go to the underworld. I bet Percy is really glad you're here right now. She kicked Percy in the shin. Yeah, Percy said. It's not luck that you found Theia, Naruto and me, Grover. You've got the biggest heart of any satyr ever. You're a natural searcher. That's why you'll be the one who finds Pan. They heard a deep, satisfied sigh. They waited for Grover to say something, but his breathing only got heavier. When the sound turned to snoring, they realized he'd fallen asleep. How does he do that? Percy asked. I don't know, Annabeth said. But that was really a nice thing you told him. I meant it. They rode in silence for a few miles, bumping around on the feed sacks. The zebra munched a turnip. The lion licked the last of the hamburger meat off his lips and looked at Percy hopefully. Annabeth rubbed her necklace like she was thinking deep, strategic thoughts. That pine tree bead, Percy said. Is that from your first year? Annabeth looked. She hadn't realized what she was doing. Yeah, she said. Every August, the counselors picks the most imper. Suddenly, they stopped in the middle of their conversation. Naruto opened his eyes and noticed all things had frozen in their places. Truck also wasn't moving. What's happening here? Naruto said as he stood up. It seems like time has stopped. You're right, an unknown voice said. Naruto turned his head and looked at voice direction. He saw an old wise man with a short gray beard. He was wearing white business suit and black shoes. He had an old-fashioned small sand clock in his left hand. Who are you? He asked. I am Kronos, old man said. The god of time, Naruto said. It is surprising, you know about me, Kronos said. People did often get confused between me and the Titan Lord Kronos. Naruto nodded and said, so what I can do for you? Your grandfather has told me many things about you, Kronos said. So I wanted to meet with you. He placed his left hand on Naruto's shoulder. There is also one thing, I saw your future, and I know you would need this. As diamond on the Naruto's forehead started to shine for a few seconds and then returned to the normal. Thanks, Naruto said. Time is always with you, Naruto, Kronos said. Use this power wisely. He disappeared from and everything went normal. Ant event of the summer and they painted on that year's beads. I've got Thalia's pine tree, a Greek trireme on fire, a centaur and a prom dress now that was a weird summer Annabeth continued. Percy asked, and the college ring is your father's? That's none of your Annabeth stopped herself. Yeah, it is. You don't have to tell me. No, it's okay. They continued their conversation. Naruto ignored them. He looked at his left hand which started to shine in white light. Time is with you, Naruto thought. He summoned glass crystal orb from his pocket dimension and crushed it by his hand. Arc of time. Restore. He said as a diamond on his forehead started to shine and small time bubble formed around the crystal. Within a few seconds it restored back to the state it was in before it took damage. Now, this is interesting, Naruto said. I need to practice it more, because if I didn't use the correct power glass crystal orb turned into sand. He saw the others were sleeping. He followed their example and closed his eyes. In Percy's dream. It was Percy's usual nightmare where he was being forced to take a standardized test while wearing a straitjacket. All the other kids were going out to recess and the teacher kept saying to him, come on, Percy. You're not stupid, are you? Pick up your pencil. Then the dream strayed from the usual. Percy looked over at the next desk. He saw Naruto and a girl sitting there. They were also wearing a straitjacket. The girl was his age, with unruly black punk-style hair, dark eyeliner around her stormy green eyes, and freckles across her nose. Somehow, he knew who she was. She was Theia, daughter of Zeus. She struggled against the straitjacket, glared at him in frustration, and snapped, well, seaweed brain. One of us has to get out of here. She's right, Percy's dream self thought. I'm going back to that cavern. I'm going to give Hades a piece of my mind. Then suddenly straitjacket melted off him and he fell through the classroom floor. The teacher's voice changed until it was cold and evil, echoing from the depths of a great chasm. "Percy Jackson," it said. "Yes, the exchange went well, I see." Percy noticed he was back in the dark cavern, spirits of the dead drifting around him. Unseen in the pit, the monstrous thing was speaking, but this time it wasn't addressing him. The numbing power of its voice seemed directed somewhere else. "And he suspects nothing?" it asked. Another voice, one Percy almost recognized, answered at his shoulder. "Nothing, my lord. He is as ignorant as the rest, but I am not sure about Son of Hades. He is too clever and he doesn't trust me." Percy looked over, but no one was there. The speaker was invisible. "The Son of Hades," the thing in the pit said aloud. "He is too strong and powerful. We have to do something about him." "Yes, my lord," said the voice next to him, "but you are well named the Crooked One. But was it really necessary? I could have brought you what I stole directly." "You?" the monster said in scorn. "You have already shown your limits. You would have failed me completely had I not intervened." "But, my lord." "Peace, little servant. Our 6 months have bought us much." Zeus's anger has grown. Poseidon and Hades have played their most desperate card. Now we shall use it against him. Shortly you shall have the reward you wish and your revenge. As soon as both items are delivered into my hands, but wait. He is here." "What?" The invisible servant suddenly sounded tense. "You summoned him, my lord." "No," the full force of the monsters said. "Blast his father's blood, he is too changeable, too unpredictable. The boy brought himself hither." "Impossible," the servant cried. "For a weakling such as you, perhaps," the voice snarled. Then its cold power turned back on Percy. "So you wish to dream of your quest, young half-blood? Then I will oblige." The scene changed. Percy found he was standing in a vast throne room with black marble walls and bronze floors. The empty, horrid throne was made from human bones fused together. Standing at the foot of the dais, he saw his mother, frozen in shimmering golden light, her arms outstretched. Percy tried to step toward her, but his legs wouldn't move. He reached for her, only to realize that his hands were withering to bones. Grinning skeletons in Greek armor crowded around him, draping him with silk robes. Suddenly, in the blink of an eye, all stopped and Percy found himself in a pure white room. "What?" the evil voice shouted. But the flock of crows Naruto appeared beside Percy. "How many times I told you are not welcome here?" he said. "You, again?" "Yes," Naruto said. "Now go back." He sent a blast of chakra. "I will never forget this, the son of Hades. We will meet again," and then his voice faded away. Percy woke with a start. Grover was shaking his shoulder. "The truck stopped," he said. "We think they're coming to check on the animals." "Hide," Annabeth hissed. She put on her magic cap and disappeared. Grover and Percy had to dive behind feed sacks. The trailer doors creaked open. Sunlight and heat poured in. "Man," one of the truckers said, waving his hand in front of his ugly nose. "I wish I hauled appliances." He climbed inside and saw Naruto was standing front lion's cage. "Hey!" he shouted. "Who are you?" "Maurice, what is happening inside?" Second trucker said from outside. "The kid is inside, Eddie," Maurice said. "The kid?" Eddie said. He also climbed inside and saw Naruto. "Who are you?" "I am your worst nightmare," Naruto said and disappeared with a flock of crows. Crows started to attack on the both truckers. "Ah, Maurice shouted. "Move them away from me." Eddie. "Shut up, Maurice. I am Buhei. Not on face." Eddie shouted. Last thing both saw was strange red eyes. "Tsukiyomi." And Tsukiyomi. Both truckers found themselves in strange world which had blood-red moon in the sky. They saw dead trees and crows were around them. Suddenly, they pinned the wooden platform by black chains. Grrrrrrr. They heard the snarling and growling of animal beside them. They turned their head and saw 3 familiar animals. They were not in their cages, and they were 5 times bigger than their normal size. "We are going to die, Eddie," Mori said. "I know," Eddie said. Grrrrrrt. They heard a low growl and saw the eyes of the animals turn to a blood red, moving their head, staring at them all. They all attacked on both truckers at once. "Ayahya!" Both truckers shouted in pain. 1 minute is gone and 47 hours 59 minutes is remaining, Naruto said. In real world. 3 seconds later both truckers collapsed on the floor. "I'm out now," Naruto said. Annabeth became visible and Grover and Percy came out from their hiding spot. Annabeth saw both truckers and asked, "What did you do with them?" She asked. "Illusion," Naruto said, "and they are only unconscious." "Now what are we going to do with them?" Percy asked and he pointed to the animals. They decided to release them. Naruto cut the locks with his sword. Grover raised his hands and spoke goat blessing. "Good luck," Naruto said. The antelope, the zebra and the lion burst out of their cages and went off together into the streets. Some tourists screamed. Most just backed off and took pictures. Will the animals be okay? Percy asked Grover. I mean, the desert and all. Don't worry, Grover said. I placed a satyr's sanctuary on them. Meaning? Meaning they'll reach the wild safely, Grover said. They'll find water, food, shade, whatever they need until they find a safe place to live. Why can't you place a blessing like that on us? Percy asked. It only works on wild animals. So it would only affect Percy, Annabeth reasoned. Hey. Percy protested. Hitting, Annabeth said. Come on. Let's get out of this filthy truck. After getting out of the truck they found themselves on the highway. Anyone knows where are we? Percy asked. We are 1 kilometer away from Las Vegas, Naruto said. How do you know that? Percy asked. Naruto pointed at signboard Las Vegas 1 kilometer. Well anyway, how reach there? Percy asked. We don't have any transport. Don't worry about that. Just take my hand, Naruto said. Everyone nodded and placed their hand on Naruto's hand. They all disappeared with the swirling of the vortex. Without anyone noticing them, they appeared in Las Vegas. Wow. Grover said. Naruto, why don't you do this in the first place? Percy said. There is some limit of teleportation power, Percy not really. There is no limitation of teleportation power, Naruto thought. They passed the Monte Carlo, the MGM pyramids, a pirate ship, and the Statue of Liberty, which was a pretty small replica, but still made Percy homesick. They weren't sure what they were looking for. They made their way to a dead-end street with a building at the end of it with a banner saying, Lotus Hotel and Casino. The entrance was a huge neon flower, the petals lighting up and blinking. No one was going in or out, but the glittering chrome doors were open, spilling out air conditioning that smelled like flowers lotus blossom. The doorman smiled at them. Hey, kids. You look tired. You want to come in and sit down? No thanks, Naruto said. Then he saw Annabeth, Grover and Percy tired faces. If you want, you can go there. I will meet you later. Thanks Naruto, Annabeth said. No problem, Naruto said and walked away from there. He made his way through the crowded street to a dark alley and then disappeared from there. He appeared far away from Las Vegas. It was the dense forest. Perfect place to train with my new power, Naruto said. The time bubble formed in right hand. Arc of time. Flash forward. He shouted and threw it forward. But other inside Lotus Hotel and Casino. Inside, they took one look around and Grover said, whoa. The whole lobby was a giant game room. There was an indoor water slide snaking around the glass elevator, which went straight up at least 40 floors. There was a climbing wall on the side of one building and an indoor bungee jumping bridge. There were virtual reality suits with working laser guns. And hundreds of video games, each one the size of a widescreen TV. There were a few other kids playing, but not that many. No waiting for any of the games. There were waitresses and snack bars all around, serving every kind of food you can imagine. Hey. A Bellop said. At least they guessed he was a Bellop. He wore a white and yellow Hawaiian shirt with lotus designs, shorts, and flip-flops. Welcome to the Lotus Casino. Here's your room key. Percy stammered, but. No, a Bellop said, laughing. The bill's taken care of. No extra charges, no tips. Just go on up to the top floor, loom 41. If you need anything, like extra bubbles for the hot tub or ski targets for the shooting range or whatever, just call the front desk. Here are your Lotus cash cards. They work in the restaurants and on all the games and rides. He handed them each a green plastic credit card. There must be some mistake. Obviously he thought we were some millionaires kids, Percy thought. But he took the card. How much is on here? He said. The Bellop eyebrow knit together. What do you mean? I mean, when does it run out of cash? The Bellop laughed. Oh, you're making a joke. Hey, that's cool. Enjoy your stay. They took the elevator upstairs and checked out the room. It was a suite with 4 separate bedrooms and a bar stocked with candy, sodas, and chips. A hotline to room service. Fluffy towels and water beds with feather pillows. A big screen television with satellite and high-speed internet. The balcony had its own hot tub and sure enough, there was a skeet shooting machine and a shotgun, so you could launch clay pigeons right out over the Las Vegas skyline and plug them with your gun. The view over the strip and the desert was amazing, but with a room like this, they probably wouldn't have any time to check it out. Oh, goodness, Annabeth said. This place is. Sweet, Grover said. Absolutely sweet. Percy saw there were clothes in the closet and they fit him. He frowned, thinking that this was a little strange. He threw Aries' backpack in the trash can, not needing it anymore. They all went to their own rooms and took a shower. When he came out of the bedroom and he found that Annabeth and Grover had also showered and changed clothes. Grover was eating potato chips to his heart's content while Annabeth cranked up the National Geographic channel. "All those stations," Percy said to her, "and you turn on National Geographic. Are you insane?" "It's interesting," Annabeth said. "I feel good," Grover said. "I love this place." "I wish Naruto would be here with us," Annabeth said. "But Naruto? Arc of time." "Stop." Naruto shouted as time bubble spread around 1 kilometer wide area and froze everything in the time. "That is good," Karasu said as she sat down on his left shoulder. "I know," Naruto said. He looked at around and everything was frozen in time, birds, animals and trees. "But I need more practice. I can only stop the time for 5 minutes and 1 kilometer is my range." The time bubble disappeared and everything went normal. "But it is only one day and we have time." "Yes," Naruto said. "Also you will like to see this." He raised his hand toward the empty space front of him and opened the space-time dimension gate. "What is this?" "It's my new space-time technique. It's faster than my space-time migration. In few seconds you can teleport from one place to another," Naruto said. The image of Lotus Hotel and Casino appeared in the gate. "Let's go." They both entered the door. Front of Lotus Hotel and Casino. In the blink of eyes they appeared in front of the hotel. "It is faster than your old technique," Karasu said. "I know," Naruto said. Before they entered the hotel, Naruto heard an unknown voice in his head. "Naruto, don't go there," a voice said. Naruto asked, "Who are you?" "I am your father and this place is a trap." Naruto thought for a few seconds and said, "Sorry father, but I am going inside. If it is trapped then I have to save them." "Karasu-chan, you can go now," Naruto said. Karasu disappeared in his shadow. Ignoring his father's warning, Naruto entered the hotel. The first thing he noticed, it was time. In this place, time is moving slower than normal, he thought. "I have to hurry." He sensed Annabeth, Grover and Percy's life signature. Found them, Naruto thought. He disappeared from there and reappeared in the room. He found Grover playing a reverse hunting game where he had to shoot rednecks. Annabeth was playing a simulation game where she could build her own city and Percy. Naruto thought, now, where is Percy? He is. "So you didn't listen to me. You are stubborn like your mother," Hades' voice said. "Thanks," Naruto said. "So what do you want now?" Hades said, "I want to talk to you about something. Look at the table on your left side." Naruto looked at the table. He saw a young boy with olive-colored skin dominating the table. The boy had shaggy and messy black hair and intense black eyes with a gleam of genius or madness. Which was kind of hard to discern. He was also wearing all black clothes and on the chair he was sitting on was an aviator's jacket. The girl walked up beside the kid. He noticed that she had black eyes and dark brown hair. She seemed to be lean and about average height. She had olive skin like the boy at the table, a sprinkle of freckles across her nose, and wore a floppy green hat that hides most of her face, but you could still see it. "So those two are my half-brother and half-sister," Naruto said. "How do you know this?" Hades asked. Their aura felt familiar. "You are truly your mother's son," Hades said. "These two are here for their own protection, don't let them know until it is time. You will see them again." "Whatever," Naruto said, "I am coming to the underworld and then we are going to long talk." He walked near them and saw the boy was playing mythological. "Interesting," he said, "he is pretty good." "Thanks," the girl replied. "But it is a pain to watch him all the time though." "By the way, my name is Naruto Uchiha," Naruto said. "I am Bianca D'Angelo by the way, and the kid at the table is my brother, Nico." Naruto reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "It is a gift for you two, for the future," he said and put it on Bianca's hand. Bianca looked at the box in her hand and said, "Sorry but she saw Naruto wasn't there. Weird boy." She turned her attention back to the box and opened it. She saw a beautiful necklace and bracelet inside. It was a beautiful silver necklace that had a small silver black dragon pendant. The dragon was holding a small blood red crystal that had 3 concentric circles and 9 commas in it. The next thing was bracelet. It was pure black. It had a dragon and the same blood red crystal on it. "What is this?" Nico asked when saw the small box in his sister's hand. "The gift," Bianca said. Then she noticed a Greek writing on the box, which was somehow she was able to read it. "Family always stick together." "I like this gift," Nico said as he took the bracelet. Bianca nodded his head. Who was he? She thought. Percy was trying to get Annabeth away from her game. "Come on," he said to her. "We've got to get out of here." Percy got no response so shook her. "Annabeth." Annabeth looked up, annoyed. "What? We need to leave." "Leave? What are you talking about? I've just got the towers. This place is a trap." Annabeth didn't respond until Percy shook her again. "What?" "Listen. The underworld. Our quest." "Oh, come on, Percy. Just a few more minutes." Suddenly Naruto appeared behind them. He put his hands on their shoulders. "Sorry we have no time," he said. He absorbed both of them into his personal dimension. Now, where is Grover? He thought. There. He disappeared again. Naruto found him still playing a virtual deer hunter. Grover said, "Die, human. Die, silly polluting nasty person." "Grover," Naruto said. "Grover." Grover turned the plastic gun on him and started clicking, as if he were just another image from the screen. Naruto took his arm and both of them disappeared from there. Naruto appeared outside the Lotus Casino with unconscious Annabeth, Percy and Grover on the ground. The first Percy woke up. "My head," he said. "Last time I was with Annabeth." Then Percy noticed it was afternoon, about the same time of day they had gone into the casino, but something was wrong. The weather had completely changed. It was stormy, with heat lightning flashing out in the desert. He also saw Ares's backpack was slung over his shoulder, which was odd, because he was sure he had thrown it in the trash can in room 41. "Oh. My head," Annabeth said. "Ah." Grover said. Both of them woke up. Annabeth saw Percy and asked, "What happened here?" "Lotus Casino is a trap," Naruto said as he appeared there. "Now, gets up, because we're leaving." "Why so urgent?" Grover asked. He threw the newspaper toward them. Percy caught it. They read the date. June 20th. They had been in the Lotus Casino for 5 days. They had only 1 day left until the summer solstice. 1 day to complete their quest. Grover said, "Oh crap. Let's go." "We don't have time," Naruto said. Chapter 17. We're going to hell. It was evening, and our 3 demigods and Satyr were front of the bookstore, Grover said in surprised tone. Annabeth stared at Naruto. "Naruto, what are we doing here?" she asked. "This bookstore is going to help us," Naruto said as he entered in the store and other walked in behind him. After entering the store, Naruto asked the person working there, "Do you have any book about LA?" "Yes," person said. He gave the book to him. Naruto took the book and gave him money. "Why you need this book?" Percy asked. "I will tell you later," Naruto said. "Just follow me." The group walked out of the store. They made their way through the crowded street to a dark alley. Naruto saw there was no one around. "Percy, you did ask me about my teleportation, right?" Naruto asked and Percy nodded. "I can teleport anywhere I want, but to teleport there I want the exact location of that place. To find a location I do follow the energy signature or imagine the place where I want to go." Then he opened the book and flipped its pages back and forth. This book has all the information and a few pictures of LA. He held the book in front of them and showed them a picture. "Are we going here?" "Santa Monica's beach," Annabeth said. Naruto nodded and made some hand gestures to bend time-space. Then a portal opened up which had images of Santa Monica's beach inside it. "What is this?" Percy asked in a surprised tone. "My new teleportation technique," Naruto said. "Let's go and don't do anything stupid if you don't want to lose forever in different dimensions." "How many times you have used this?" Grover asked in a nervous tone. "This is the second time," Naruto said as he disappeared into the portal. What?" Grover looked at Annabeth and Percy and asked nervously, "He is kidding, right?" "I don't know," Annabeth said. She and Percy entered into the portal. But that Grover become more nervous. "Now or never," he said to himself. He closed his eyes and stepped in the portal. "You can open your eyes." Grover heard Naruto's voice. He opened his eyes and saw he was in Santa Monica's beach. It looked exactly the way LA beaches do in the movies, only it smelled worse. There were carnival rides lining the pier, palm trees lining the sidewalks, homeless guys sleeping in the sand dunes, and surfer dudes waiting for the perfect wave. "Thank God. I am safe," he shouted. "Whatever Grover, let's go," Naruto said. As they walked down to the edge of the surf, Annabeth asked, "Naruto, you can sense energy signature, right?" Naruto nodded. "So can you sense Zeus Master Bolt energy?" "No," Naruto said. Percy asked, "Why?" "Because I haven't seen Zeus's Master Bolt before nor I know its energy signature," Naruto said. He turned to Annabeth. "And do you really think someone who had stolen it is an idiot? He or she would have already taken all necessary precautions for that, so no one can find it." "I never thought about that," Grover said. "So what now?" Annabeth asked. It was sunset and the Pacific was turning gold in the setting sun. "I have no clue," Naruto said, "but I think Percy might have." He pointed to Percy, who was walking in the water. "Percy?" Annabeth said. "What are you doing?" But Percy didn't stop walking. "You know how polluted that water is. There are all kinds of toxic." He just ignored her as he went underwater. "Don't worry about him, Annabeth," Naruto said. "He is the son of the Poseidon. It's his father element." "But Percy?" Percy felt something rub against his leg. Looking down, he saw a 5-foot-long mako shark. But the weird thing was that it wasn't attacking on him. It was nuzzling him like a dog. Percy touched its dorsal fin. It bucked a little, as if inviting him to hold tighter. He grabbed the fin with both hands. It took off, pulling him along. The shark carried him down into the darkness. He noticed surface was 150 feet above him. I should have been crushed by the pressure, Percy thought. Then again, I shouldn't have been able to breathe. Then he saw something glimmering in the darkness below, growing bigger and brighter. A woman's voice, like his mother, said Percy Jackson. As she got closer, her shape became clearer. She had flowing black hair, a dress made of green silk. Light flickered around her, and her eyes were so distracting beautiful. She was riding the stallion-sized seahorse. She dismounted. The seahorse and the mako shark whisked off and started playing something that looked like tag. The underwater lady smiled at him. "You've come far, Percy Jackson. Well done." Percy wasn't quite sure what to do, so he bowed. "You're the woman who spoke to me in the Mississippi River." "Yes, child. I am an Nereid, a spirit of the sea." It was not easy to seem so far upriver, but the Naiads, my freshwater cousins, help sustain my life force. They honor Lord Poseidon, though they do not serve in his court. "And you serve in Poseidon's court?" She nodded. "It has been many years since a child of the sea god has been born. We have watched you with great interest." Suddenly Percy remembered faces in the waves off Montauk Beach when he was a little boy, reflections of smiling women. Like so many of the weird things in his life, he had never given it much thought before. "If my father is so interested in me," he said, "why isn't he here? Why doesn't he speak to me?" The cold current rose out of the depths. "Do not judge the Lord of the Sea too harshly," the Nereid said. "He stands at the brink of an unwanted war. He has much to occupy his time. Besides, he is forbidden to help you directly. The gods may not show such favoritism. Even to their own children. Especially for them. The gods can work by indirect influential only. That is why I give you a warning and a gift." She held out her hand. 3 white pearls flashed in her palm. But Naruto and others. Grover and Annabeth were waiting for Percy while Naruto was sitting on ground in meditation. "What's taking him so long?" Grover asked. "Don't worry, he will be fine," Annabeth said. Naruto opened his eyes and said, "Percy, he is coming here." He stood up and saw Percy emerge from the water. He was already dry. "Percy, what happened there?" Grover asked. Percy told Naruto, Grover and Annabeth what had happened and showed them the pearls. "Interesting," Naruto said. Annabeth grimaced. "No gift comes without a price." Percy said, "They were free." "No." She shook her head. "There is no such thing as a free lunch. That's an ancient Greek saying that translated pretty well into American. There will be a price. You wait. "We can talk about it later," Naruto said. "Percy. Give me the address." Annabeth asked in confusion, "Which address?" "Underworld's address," Percy informed them. "You have Underwood's address," Grover said in surprised tone. "We got it from Auntie M's Garden Gnome Emporium," Percy said, and he gave an address to Naruto. Naruto took address from him. "O Recording Studios. West Hollywood. California." Annabeth said, "We are going to Hollywood," Grover said. "Our 3 demigods and Satyr were in Hollywood." Percy, Annabeth and Grover were wearing new clothes which they had got from Ares' backpack. Naruto was in his same outfit. They wandered for miles on foot, looking for dough. Nobody seemed to know where it was. It didn't appear in the phone book. Percy froze in front of an appliance store window because a television was playing an interview with somebody who looked very familiar to him, his stepdad Smelly Gabe. He was talking to Barbara Walters if he were some kind of huge celebrity. She was interviewing him in their apartment in the middle of a poker game, and there was a young blonde lady sitting next to him, patting his hand. A fake tear glistened on his cheek. He was saying, "Honestly, Ms. Walters, if it wasn't for Sugar here, my grief counselor, I'd be a wreck. My stepson took everything I cared about. My wife, my Camaro, I'm sorry. I have trouble talking about it." "There you have it, America." Barbara Walters turned to the camera. "A man torn apart. An adolescent boy with serious issues. Let me show you, again, the last known photo of this troubled young fugitive." It was the same photo of him which had been taken in bus. "Your stepdad is a good actor," Naruto said from beside him. "If you want I can send him to another dimension forever." "You can do that?" Percy asked hopefully. "Yes." "Come on," Grover said. He hauled Percy away before he could say anything. "Percy, for your kind information my offer still stands," Naruto said. It got dark and hungry-looking characters started coming out on the streets to play. Percy was a New Yorker. He wasn't scared easily. But LA had a totally different feel from New York. In New York, everything seemed close. It didn't matter how big the city was, you could get anywhere without getting lost. The street pattern and the subway made sense. There was a system to how things worked. The kid could be safe as long as he wasn't stupid. LA wasn't like that. It was spread out, chaotic, hard to move around. It wasn't enough for LA being big, it had to prove it was big by being loud and strange and difficult to navigate, too. Percy didn't know how they were ever going to find the entrance to the underworld by tomorrow, the summer solstice. They walked past gangbangers, bums, and street hawkers who looked at them like they were trying to figure if they were worth the trouble of mugging. This place is filled with a lot of negative emotions, Naruto though. They hurried past the entrance of an alley, a voice from the darkness said, "Hey, you." They stopped. Before they knew it, they were surrounded by a group of thug who appeared from the alley. There were 6 of them. Instinctively, Percy tried to uncap Riptide, but Naruto held his hand. "I will handle them," he whispered in his ear. Then he looked at thugs and said, "Get lost." "Kid, you are here surrounded," said one thug. Clearly he was leader. "Now give us all your money." "How about no," Naruto said. "Then we are." He was about to tell them what they were going to do with them when suddenly everything froze. Annabeth noticed that except them nothing was moving. "What happened to them?" she asked. "Don't worry about it, I will handle them," Naruto said. "Now go." "But." "He is right," Annabeth Grover said. "Let's go." He, Annabeth and Percy ran from there. Naruto looked at thugs and everything went normal. Leader found the only Naruto front of him. "Hey," he said, "where are your friends?" "You don't need to know." "Tell me." Leader shouted. He walked front. "If you are not," he raised his hand that already curled into a fist and he was ready to punch him, but Naruto grabbed his hand. "You would be useful to me in the future," Naruto said, and he absorbed him in his personal dimension. Thugs saw their leader disappeared in some kind rap hole. Where is J. John?" one thug asked. Naruto didn't say anything. Thugs took out his gun and fired at Naruto. Naruto caught the incoming bullet between his index and middle finger. "Pathetic," he said. He then casually flicks the bullet back. The thug was caught off guard as a bullet hit directly into his heart. He was dead on the spot. Other thugs were now scared. They took a step back in fear. Who are you?" one thug asked fearfully. "Your death," Naruto said coldly. "Ayahaya." "With others." "Ayahaya." "What was that?" Grover asked. "I don't know," Percy said. "And I don't want to know." They raced down the street, not knowing where they were going. They turned a sharp corner. "There!" Annabeth shouted. Only one store on the block looked open, its windows glaring with neon. The sign above the door said something like CRSTUY's Water BD Alpis. Krusty's Waterbed Palace. Grover translated. They burst through the doors. "What about Naruto?" Grover panted. "He is Naruto. He will be fine," Percy said. The voice behind them boomed, "What are you doing here?" They all jumped. Standing behind them was a guy who looked like a raptor in a leisure suit. He was at least 7 feet tall, with absolutely no hair. He had gray, leathery skin, thick-lidded eyes, and a cold reptilian smile. He moved toward them slowly. His shirt was silk paisley, unbuttoned halfway down his hairless chest. The lapels on his velvet jacket were as wide as landing strips and the silver chains around his neck. "I'm Krusty," he said, with a tartar yellow smile. Percy resisted the urge to say, "Yes, you are." "Sorry to barge in," he told him. "We were just, browsing." The man nodded and said, "You want to look at a waterbed?" Percy was about to say no, thanks, when he put a huge paw on his shoulder and steered him deeper into the showroom. "I have a very bad feeling about this," Annabeth thought. But Naruto. Naruto was standing in front of the dead bodies of the thugs. "Weak," he said to himself. "You are truly your father's son," a female voice said. Naruto looked at the voice direction. The first he saw was a very beautiful woman with long black hair and a very high-class looking dress. The second was a tall man with sharp-looking eyes, black hair, and was in a midnight black business suit. The man looked at the thugs' dead bodies and said, "You know the heroes are forbidden from killing mortals." "I know, but I am not a hero," Naruto said. He turned his head towards dead bodies. "Amaterasu." With that, black fire started to burn the bodies. "So who are you two?" The woman smiled at Naruto and said, "Hello Naruto, I am Nyx, and this is my husband, Irbus." "Technically, we are your grand-uncle and grand-aunt," Irbus said. "Nice to meet you," Naruto said. "But why are you two here?" "We came here to see you. The deities have great interest in you, which is mostly because you are not like other they have seen," Nyx said as she and Irbus put a hand on either shoulder, and Naruto glowed for a moment. "This is a gift from us." "And this from Gaia to you," Irbus said as ball of yellow light came out from his palm and disappeared in Naruto's body. "Thanks," Naruto said. Nyx came forward and hugged him. "It is no problem. We are always watching you, Naruto," Irbus said. "Goodbye, Naruto," Nyx said. "One last thing, hurry up, your friends, they are in danger," Irbus said, and they disappeared in darkness. "Let's find them," Naruto said to himself. He concentrated to find his friend's energy. Found them. He disappeared into the swirling of vortex. Of Percy and other. Rope sprang from the sides of the bed, lashing around Annabeth and Percy, holding them to the mattress. Grover tried to get up, but rope sprang from his black satin bed, too, and lashed him down. And not, CC cool. He yelled, his voice vibrating from the million-hand message. And not C cool at all. The giant looked at Annabeth, then turned to Percy and grinned. Almost, darn it. Percy shouted, let me go. Oh, sure I will. But I got to make all of you fit first. What do you mean? All the beds are exactly 6 feet, see? You all are too short. Got to make you all fit. Percy, Annabeth and Grover kept struggling. Can't stand imperfect measurements, Krusty muttered. Ergo. A new set of ropes leaped out from the top and bottom of the beds, wrapping around Percy, Grover and Annabeth's ankles, then around their armpits. The ropes started tightening, pulling them from both ends. Don't worry, Krusty said, these are stretching jobs. Maybe 3 extra inches on your spines. You all might even live. Why your real name's not Krusty is it? Percy asked. Legally, it's Procris, he admitted. D the stretcher, Annabeth said. They remembered the story. The giant who tried to kill Theseus with excess hospitality on his way to Athens. Yeah, the salesman said. But who can pronounce Procris? Bad for business. Now Krusty anybody can say that. He looked at them. Now, time for stretch. Sorry, Naruto's voice said behind him. But we don't have time. He cut his head off with a sword. Krusty's body turned into dust. Then he looked at them and cut the ropes on the beds. Percy, Annabeth and Grover got to their feet, groaning and wincing. You look taller, Naruto said to them. Very funny, Annabeth said. Be faster next time. Naruto looked at the bulletin board behind Krusty Sale's desk. There was an advertisement for Hermes delivery service and another for the all-new compendium of LA area monsters, the only monstrous yellow pages you'll ever need. Under that, a bright orange flyer for Doe Recording Studios, offering commissions for hero souls. We are always looking for new talent. Doe's address was right underneath with a map. Let's go, Naruto said. Give us a minute, Grover complained. We were almost stretched to death. Then hurry up, Naruto said. Percy asked, why? Because we are going to hell, Naruto said. See you all in the next chapter. If you like this story, then please, destroy the subscribe button until its color changes. If you saw any mistakes in my story, please, comment down below. On 70 likes the next part will be uploaded. For now, you guys should watch this video. I will see you all there.